Welcome to the Busy Being Born podcast with your hosts Kamande and Kigondu.
Mambo. Woza.
Viti sana tumeanza.
Woza.
That's what's up.
Woza. I don't know how someone is supposed to answer woza.
Woza is it's hood for what's up.
Yeah, I know, but what's the response? Woza
unaweza enda tu woza.
Yeah, woza.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm easy.
Good to see you,
great and grateful. Good to see you as well.
Yeah.
Karibu nivae t-shirt ya orange pia.
Sawa, hapo sawa mzee. Kimbia nayo. Hiyo ni red. Hiyo ni tomato red. I don't know. I'm guessing, but ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana
to another episode of the Busy Being Born podcast.
Yes. Today's episode is brought to you nadu into camera. Unajua, now it's exciting.
Yeah.
So unajua, if you're listening to us and you're taking your evening jog ama morning jog, however you like it, nowadays we also have to ask, niko kwa kamera gani? Unajua, we feel kind of fancy now that we are online. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Prevail Presents. Prevail Presents, as you already know, is an award-winning company. Now we can claim it as an award-winning company, even as a company that is a friend of a podcast. Prevail Presents has given us theater back to back. It has given us film as well. And this particular year, because we are recording in the great 2023, they are back with a couple of their projects, two of which are the award-winning Supernova. It's about to do its victory lap, something Abu was excited about, and I'm sure all of you will be when it gets to the ground. But they're also showing, as we're recording this, Busy Being Born at the National Theatre. And then also, just like our guest from the previous episode, should be fundraising for their first feature film. So look out for them at Prevail Presents on IG, at Prevail Presents on Facebook. And support, and not only because you want to support a local brand, not only because you want to support African artistry, but support because it's a good initiative. These are stars out here creating very authentic Kenyan stories. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, those are our sponsors for the day. We have a guest. Tunafaa kuget jingles za kelele na tuwimbo na red carpet. Yes, tell us about this guest. Wacha nikuulize ya kwanza. Are they brilliant?
Of course they're really brilliant.
Yeah. Are they representing the motherland?
In a very special way, they represent the motherland. Kwanza the kofia.
Yes.
Hey, the kofia that's always donned. It's like a trademark African kofia.
Umefanya nifikirie story. It's a Mufasa cap.
It reminds me of Mufasa and Rao and a few other guys.
Legends.
Guys will honor it on the only legends.
That's what's
in
up.
a very motherland way.
And last but not least, are they busy being born?
Of course, they're busy being born.
Yeah.
Oh man, they've had like iteration after iteration, and we'll hear their stories, and both like from a career point of view as well as from a personal viewpoint. I think they're just discovering themselves every day, learning and iterating.
We look forward to
and pulling a lot of people while doing that.
As they go up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about them.
Our guest today is an avid community and ecosystem builder who is really passionate about helping entrepreneurs, corporates and investors to achieve their goals. He enjoys doing this by connecting them to relevant resources and people. Consistently, he has been inspired by innovative ideas and collaborative problem solving, going out of his way to be part of a solution, and mostly through connecting people, is not a surprise to many. He is an entrepreneur himself with a deep passion for building things that people love and find useful, especially around travel and community. Community is a key theme in how he looks at life. and what else is more important than community. Yeah, he currently serves as the executive director of the Baraza Media Lab team, before which he was part of the founding team of Meta Nairobi, and also worked at the Strathmore Business School as a program manager for the MBA program. He also worked, interestingly, as an accountant. That's why I told these guys has had multiple iterations.
Yeah.
He worked as an accountant. Accountants are boring, but he's not, which is weird. He worked as an accountant in various firms in Kenya, including GM, General Motor, East Africa, Farmchem Limited, and Samia Africa, as well as Sanofi. Due to his love for nature, physical fitness, this guy can run really fast, by the way. I've played with him. We'll talk about it. And building communities, he founded Camp Nu Camping, a camping and hiking outfit in Kenya. He's also part of the founding team of ASEC, that is the Association of Startup and SME Enablers of Kenya. His primary interests can be summed up as corporate innovation, storytelling, media, entrepreneurship, impact investing, and venture capital, as well as emerging/frontier markets and community building. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the all-round, brilliant, amazing, talented, and the busy being born, Maurice Otieno.
Hey. Karibu sana, wazee.
Karibu sana, Maurice.
Hey, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yes.
How do you say it less provocatively?
Yeah.
You've blown is it called hot air up my
Moshi. I've blown the Moshi up your dear. It's okay. I've blown some Moshi up your dear, but you deserve it.
You do.
Yeah, you do.
Manze. Me hata nilikuwa ngojea amalize, then we go. Thank you for listening to the episode, because already
It's
like
a lot.
just listening to your bio to go, oh yeah, we need to be out here busy being born.
No.
Hey.
You guys are doing the heavy lifting.
Oh, yeah?
You guys are
It's
doing the
like,
heavy
am I
lifting.
really busy being born? Bana.
Congratulations.
Asanteni.
And keep going.
Asanteni.
Keep going. He said something. I'm sure in some circles inaweza kuwa controversial. Yeah. Yes. Accountants boring. Let's start there. Unajua hot take.
That's why I left.
Oh yeah.
That's why I left, man. Like just being behind a table na pushing paper na angalia Excel the whole day cannot make it. I am more human beings, human interactions, you know. So
Yeah.
I couldn't make it. That's why I left.
I
That's why I
figured.
left.
Yeah.
I figured. Having known him for a while,
Yeah.
he's not.
Accountant.
Just asa.
Not really.
Not really.
Accountant, uvai kofia mtu akutrust na pesa. Nobody will trust you with their money with this kofia. They want different people.
Are you sure?
Clean shaven, you know.
Like a tie.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't manage.
Yeah.
Corporate kabisa.
I couldn't manage.
Oh God, this sounds like a major decision for you in your life. At some point, we'll get to the story where you decide, I'm done with this accounting side. So let's make it as simple as the now. Yeah. What's the last finding you now in your path? What's the last decision you made that was a change of direction, change of mind? It could be as simple as I decided to wake up 10 minutes earlier. I decided to use this path coming to the office or something. What's the last small decision that you made that ilikuwa total shift from a kawaida choice?
From a kawaida choice.
Yeah.
So I'm not a good writer, but I just decided of late, like I'll just try and journal a lot. Because more than often, people like me who talk to people, our energy feeds off other people. We don't talk about ourselves. We don't sit down and think about ourselves. We think about, is Sam okay? Are you guys okay? So this time I started thinking of myself. Wikimbili too. Then I started writing a lot of things. Then I started discovering a lot of things. I don't have a pattern. You know, you wake up, you do this. For me, it's the only pattern I have is the first 20 minutes when I wake up. So the first 20 minutes when I wake up, the first thing I check is Twitter. That's it. That's the only pattern I have. Then the day disappears.
That's pretty consistent.
And the day disappears. So I thought like, oh, maybe I should think about how my day goes and how I monitor it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this journaling?
The journaling I started like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's that going?
It's okay. It's okay. I figured I'm not a good writer. I'm really trying to, articulate my thoughts well in the journaling.
Yeah. You know what you should do? You should use ChatGPT.
Wacha.
Tell me about my
Tell me
day.
about my day.
Yeah,
the day looking
now
like?
that you know
You know everything.
exactly. Okay,
Until
okay.
life hacks. Using ChatGPT for journaling.
That's a good one. Okay. Do you remember a season in your earlier life when you'd do a bit of this? Maybe ni primo, ama when you're encouraged to write compositions. Do you remember a time that you're sort of chatting, picking back from, ama it's a totally new thing for you, the journaling?
This is a totally new thing. The only time I've ever picked back in my life is when I'm writing my CV.
Okay.
You know, when I'm writing my CV or writing my bio is when I'm like,
Yeah.
what have I done?
Yeah.
So even when today Sam was reading it, I was like, wait, you pen lifanya. So, you know, because
Yeah.
you go back and you're like, I'm always of, and to be honest, these are coming from a very privileged point of view. Most things that I've gotten is because I've been called. And that has meant that for the longest time, I've never sat down to update and look back and look at my life like, okay, up until pale nimetoka, now I'm here. You know, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I've tried to whenever I do that, it's just CV or bio.
Okay.
And I look back at what I did, how has it changed me, or has it changed someone? That's the match I've gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How good were you at compositions?
Yeah.
Hey, Apo Sasa, I always had one storyline. Like a storyline, like I remember my mom used to make fun of me because my mom is a teacher.
Yeah.
So anything that I was talking about was kidnapping.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people did this. Like, even if the story was like, oh, there's a butterfly that landed on the window, I'll figure out
Somehow
how to bring it and bring
you
like
get
kidnapping.
yourself to a kidnapping story.
It acquired the same composition, it
The
acquired
same
the same
ish as well.
insha, everything. So
Crazy Kennar has a sketch. Kai tuli
Ghafla bin
vu.
akatokea wa
Watu wenye ilikuwa like something
Miraba
miraba
minne wakatokea.
misuli tinginya.
Everything. Andika
I remember
kuhusu siku
this was
njema.
one of his first skits.
Yes,
Sindio?
one of his
like
most popular.
and it was like the very early
That
days
was
of
me.
COVID.
Exactly.
That was
This
you,
was
man.
you.
I mastered that narrative arc. Like, okay, so when do I bring this person? When
Hey, miraba tinginya.
exactly. Oh, mirabe imetokea hapa and it's a butterfly. So it was always like very funny.
This was you.
For me,
Okay.
it was always very funny when we will try and I've always been good at speaking to people. I'm not a public speaker, but I'm always good at articulating my feelings, my thoughts, you know, but not writing it.
Okay.
So now is when I'm trying to learn and writing it. I work with an awesome writer, I think, in the world. So I'm really learning a lot from her.
Okay.
And being that I'm also in the creative space now, you cannot go without being a good
I
writer.
mean, no one really expects you to write as an accountant.
That's an honor. Okay, thank you so much.
So I'm sure in like accounting circles is a big deal. Yo, he like unajua. He made it out in the creative space as well.
Okay.
Let's go back to that season of childhood. What came to you first? Did you realize, oh, I can't write as well? Ama did you realize I'm actually quite okay with socializing and community, because clearly we can see you're
There's
good
a
at
running
speaking
theme.
and-
Yeah.
Or
For
was
me,
it the math?
math was I was good. I cannot lie.
Yeah.
I was
That
good at
came
math.
much more
that one
easily,
was always
yeah.
something that we got whipped into, like
Okay.
into the family. Like, I think I have two sisters. I think all of us have done CPAs at some point. Never finished, but we did it.
Yeah.
I got to CPA 5. Like, pana bro, hii kitu,
Nivo sasa.
I cannot do it.
Yeah.
I was doing for it. I was doing for my mom. Shika certificate yako.
Yeah.
But yeah, math was always something that was in our farm, and I think it was based off like my grandfather was an accountant. Then, you know, they push you like, you'll never miss a job in any industry. You know, medicine or whatever. You'll always need accountants. So for us, we are going in with that mindset of like, it's a do or die. Like, you have to do it. So math was good. But then the other thing that was there for me, I had like a gazillion friends. So always building friendships and community around me. That was something that I always had from the childhood. So the creative space I was always an admirer of like creative productions and things that come out of it. I was never in that space actively. By creative, I mean, because also entrepreneurs sometimes say they are creatives, like tech entrepreneurs, because they have seen a problem, then they creatively come up with a solution. But I'm saying creatives in terms of like content side. So I was always an admirer. I love art, like fine art. For the longest time, my friends who did not know more about me will ask me like, mbona unapenda kuona like artists when they're drawing and you know the way Kenyans sometimes you will argue, like if somebody tells you like, oh, this art is 3,000. Are you 3,000? This hata mimi fanya. You know, you've seen those comments. And I know we've also said it internally, haka hujasema out loud. But for me, it was just the process of that. So, and I think I will always admire. So when I got into this space, I'm fully immersed.
Yeah.
But there's nothing different from what I've always done, which is community building.
Okay.
Every sector needs a community.
Yeah. So we've learnt about your siblings. We've learnt about your mom. Yeah. Let's go there. Uku ni wapi Primo?
Where are you growing up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy was born in Kitale, kwa mahindi huko. So Kitale was, so my mom is a teacher. My dad used to work for the government back then in Kitale. So they meet, and the way they meet was secretive. Like my mom used to stay with, I think, an uncle or an elder cousin of hers. And my dad was visiting that side. So they used to sneak and meet and all that. So I'm the firstborn. So I get born in Kitale. Then my dad gets transferred to Nairobi. And we move. That was 90, I think it was 95, if I'm not wrong. So we moved to Nairobi for the first time and we go to Kasarani. Kasarani at that time, like, it's not that developed. You know, there's big pieces of land. The road leading to there was like going to, you know, it's it's hectic. So that's where we start. So then my second born sister is already born at that time when you're moving into Kasarani, and I start playing football. The social me starts playing football for, remember, I don't know if you guys remember the days of Mathare soccer. Maisa.
Yeah.
So I started playing for Maisa. Remember was it 90, when Manchester United under 15 team came to Kenya?
They did.
And, they did. And I remember
it's only guys who lived in Kasarani.
Of course, who know.
I did. I lived in Kasa.
You know something about.
You live in Kasa?
Yeah.
Man,
Watu wa Mwiki in the 90s.
Huko ndo nilikuwa. Huko ndani.
Ulienda shule gani huko?
Mimi nilikuwa St. Dominic hapo.
Me too.
No
Bro. Look at that.
way.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Ndio anasema niko what?
We're in St. Dominic huko karibu na police station.
Yes.
So that's where I used to stay.
What are the odds, man?
It's crazy, right?
Yes.
So I used to stay in, so I schooled in St. Dominic, which is a public school. At that time, I think it was, everyone going around that area used to school in that place. This is massive, yeah? Then I went to a private school called Nyawai.
Nyawai. Oh, wow.
Let's
watch that when the tangent.
Yeah?
Do you by any chance know of a Mrs. Kigondu?
I probably do.
You probably do.
I probably, because she was there. So my mom
She was
also
at St. Dominic's, then she went
Jesus,
to Nyawai.
Yes. So I went Nyawai, then there's another private school there called Rorin. So I schooled in those two schools.
Look at that.
So, hapo ni sali life ikomeanza kuomoka, so you're going to private schools.
Yeah,
Umetoka public,
next
now you're going
and
private
next.
schools. Then we left, because my mom and dad separated at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So we left and came back to Nyayo High Res sasa. So we come to Nyayo High Res when Nyayo High Res was Nyayo High Res. Right now, imekuwa Riara boarding school. Riara and Strathmore boarding place.
Yeah.
So I come back to High Res. At that time, I'm schooling, and I start playing rugby. Remember, I was a football guy. So I went to high school, and then one thing that I noticed is that basketballers are taller than me, because basketball was left for like Nairobians, First of all, I went to Maseno for 1 year, then I went to a school called Agorosare, because school fee was tough at that time. So we went back to Agorosare, which now is a big school.
It's a big school now.
Umeiweka humbling.
Back then, even pronouncing the name, I used to tell I go for a French school. I go to a French school called Agorosare. Like, wait, what? What is French school? But anyway, so the thing is, so went there, then I tried to play football. Hey, wanaume miraba nne, like
Tinginya.
Tinginya mwenye misuli. So I went there. You're seeing this guy has beard more than your dad, and he's bigger than your dad. You want to play football?
The calves on the guy.
No, I gave up. So I went. I said I could not play football. As much as I was skilled from Mathare Soccer Association and all, myself, I could not do it there. So I tried basketball. Basketball was so tough, because basketball, you have tall guys. you can imagine at that time, I think provincials and nationals, Nyanza and Western schools were holding
They were very
sports,
dominant. Yeah.
from rugby to basketball to hockey to football.
Yes.
So at that time I could not manage. So the only option was one day we were doing inter classes. So we're playing inter classes and we were playing inter classes rugby. I didn't know anything. So me, I was just told, you're representing your class, here you are. Somebody passed me the ball and I just ran. And I ran. Kumbe, I ran faster than the Form 4. the biggest guy, the toughest guy. So in the night, Form 4s come to my bed.
So because you ibishad him.
Yeah, they come to my bed to threaten me, but also to involve me in rugby. So they're like, wewe, tusikupate tena aibisha wa baba. I was like, okay, sir. So they bring me onto the team. But they also say that henceforth I'll not do manual work, which was yay. So that's how I joined rugby.
The privileged life of rugby boys.
Of sports in high school. I never did manual work. When people are suffering because my high school or stuff, I was like, "Aye, really?
Yeah.
My life was awesome." I never did anything.
What a story. Let's go back and I have a few questions around this season of your life. So one is obviously from a sports point of view. How did you get into football? Is it your parents who pushed you? Ilikuwa tu ile everyone is doing this around this area, so I might as well just do it. So it was a little bit of both. My parents didn't push me, but my dad actually, funny story, is my dad played, I can't remember all the people that he played with, but he played for Gor Mahia, like way back. So he shows me photos of him and you see like big thighs, like somebody. Now he's a bit... Hold up. Your dad played for Gor Mahia? Yeah, he did. Man. Okay. He did play for Gor Mahia and then... That's big. Then life happened and because the funny thing is that back then sports, it was almost like sports was not brainy. Sports was brawn, So the bigger you are, you play football and you don't go to school. Why are you going to school? So he never advanced in school that much. Him alifika form 4 hapa ndo pale nimefika. I'm playing football. I'm now in a big team, Gor Mahia. He mentions these guys and Nani. I'm like, who's that? Like people he played with, But he never advanced. But sports back then also never paid. So he dropped off, got a good a job with the Gava. So that also inspired me. I was like, hey, so I can try sports up and apale. And then now the environment also enabled it. Like in Kasarani Mwiki, there's a place called Santon. Like Maisa used to play there. On this other side, there's Njiru. There's Maisa is there. Like Maisa was everywhere. And you're also close to Madare, right? So Maisa that's the home of Maisa. Yeah. So I think that just gave me the push of like there's no basketball in that area. That was football area. There's no rugby. That was football area. So that made me to go into that. Yeah. But you look at the shift when I moved to now high rise and I go to high school where I see football is not my thing. The next best option was either basketball or rugby, which is also supported with the location where I'm staying at, But for basketball, because I could not physically do it, guys were taller than I am. Although I have a flight, I could not do it. I went for rugby, and the only advantage that I had was speed, and that's how I got into rugby. And I tell people that rugby just changed my life from there to now. Actually, define it as we go on to the story. I'll tell you how it defines and it places me in where I am right now. You can trace this story to rugby. Everything. Whatever happened to Maisa? What happened? Shout out to Bob Monroe. Man, I don't know. I think just multiple mismanagement and because as much as they were creating a funnel for the main team and also the national team, but if there's mismanagement from the top, I don't have a lot of context, but I think that's from an outsider point of view. I think maybe it might be yes, you're creating a good pipeline, but where are they going? Yeah, because at some point I feel like at the peak of Kenya's football, at least in our generation, and you remember this as well, because we made it to Africa Cup of Nations at some point, I think once. And I feel like, I could be wrong, but a bunch of those players came through Maisa. Yeah. A bunch of players, if you look at even the current guys who played for different clubs in Ongwaro and all that, because Maisa eventually did not become something for Madare. It expanded to other peri-urban areas. And some of them were just nurtured from there, and they joined the National League. So I think I don't have a lot of context, but probably it's more mismanagement of the national... At the national level. Federation. Okay. That trickles down. Yeah, that trickles down. And of course, if you remember that time,
right now there's a documentary on FIFA, right? That is talking about how that time also they were really pushing FIFA from a global perspective, was really pushing funding towards local football, right? And that also might have also helped that.
What's the name of the documentary?
It's not El Presidente. Am I
Something they're talking. I remember it's let me.
Yeah, we look for it. Yeah, because
But they're talking
also,
about but
I
they're
feel
basically talking about the fall of FIFA and Blatter, where they're talking about like the systemic corruption that was there, and how that has affected football globally, and even in Brazil. You know, there's also like even now I think there's also another documentary also on Brazilian football, because Brazilian form of football, what is different from the Spanish tiki-taka that Barcelona are playing. They call it Ginga, and Ginga was based, if you look at the history of that, is because when the Portuguese were bringing black Africans to Brazil, right, then these guys started revolting and they went into the forest and they taught themselves capoeira, the form of fighting, which was how they were fighting in the forest. At some point when the black slaves basically leave the forest and come out to reclaim their space, they use the form of fighting style to play football also. So it's more like martial arts, but it's football. That's why you're seeing like Akina Ronaldinho doing like the Caesar, you know, like they're kicking the ball. So but that also was discriminated in Brazil. And FIFA starts to push money into the local communities to play football, and the people who are in the local peri-urban communities in Brazil are of course the enslaved, right?
Yeah.
And they play Jenga and they come in to become now to the actual four, and that's anyway, if you look at the documentary, it's very interesting just how global effects go
trickle down all that. Yeah. What are your fondest memories from your Kasarani times in Kasarani?
Just mischievousness. Like, you know, I was young, man. There's one story that my mom has never given up on. There's one story that so when you were growing up, and I was with a lot of friends, right? So we go and there's a guy who has a truck. He parks his truck outside nyumba yake. What you do, see, we are kids, we are making those, I don't know if you guys made cars of wire.
Wire and bladder.
We made it. So we improved on our imagination about these cars, and we wanted them to have mata lights. So we go and chomoa headlights for this guy. Like seriously, we chomoa headlights and we tore the bulbs. And we put them in our car. Then the guy comes to our house in the night because we were seen. And we were reprimanded and we were beaten up because we literally, you know, defaced his car. Tukatoa headlights, tukatoa bulbs, tukatoa gari zetu za mawaya.
No, you don't need this. We actually need this.
Bro, tulichapo. We were beaten. By my mom chapped even the other kids. Hata si mtoto wake.
Because she was a teacher.
Ali to discipline sisi wote. Like she disciplined the entire community. You cannot do that to somebody's car. The guy was so fuming. Because it's like if you go back to your house right now and you find like somebody has, you know, toa headlights, akatoa bulb, akakushia headlights zako vizuri, and that was it. So that's my mischievous moments there. Then also if you look, if you know that part of the country or town well, there's a quarry. So they have a lot of quarries in Kasarani.
At least used to.
Now maybe probably they have been rehabilitated. I hope so. So these quarries, people used to go mine stones and leave the quarries like that. So when it rains, the quarry forms like a pond. And we used to find our swimming pools. So tunaenda hapo Dufo Mpararo. But the sad bit is that you're swimming in a pond that first of all is not safe because the rocks are completely not stable, right? And also there's you're kids. So the other thing is that we lost 2 friends just because of those stories. But we never stopped. We used to go there.
Keep going.
And my mom used to just get pissed every single time we used to go there. And it's simple things, just mischievousness. And losing my slippers every weekend. She buys you new slippers, you go play in the sand, imepotea, you scramble that sand, upati slippers. That night you're not having
these stories, you kids will not relate at all.
Slippers. They now wear Crocs.
Dufo. How now?
The other day I was talking to my daughter, she's like, oh, Daddy, you know, my ballet teacher told me that I was like, ballet
hiyo tunalipia hiyo unafanya pia
ulilipa kwa school fees au kuangalia bado ulilipa kwa
exactly.
And yeah, life is good.
I can't complain. That's how you know at least you're a sweet part.
Exactly. When your kids don't talk of Dufom Pararo.
Do you know, I tell people we used to go for Dufom Pararo in Mweki Wakono. Where? How? And I keep telling them there was an actual river. Like kulikuwa na maji, kulikuwa na space ya kucheza. Right now it's so congested, you'd never relate.
You never. I went there and the road is nice. I was like, wait, the road is nice. I was used to bad roads.
And this is recent as well. This is within the last 10 years.
And let me ask you, when you were staying there, was there, did you know that there was a place that was rumored, because I don't have facts, that it was owned by the previous first family? Mm-hmm. There's a place when you're going to pass the police station, St. Dominic,
yeah.
At the first family, Uhuru family used, or Kenyatta family used to own it. It's massive piece of land with vintage houses. It's almost like a castle.
Yeah.
It was rumored because it still exists.
I think that rumor still is there, because I remember the last time I used that road.
Yeah.
I was in an Uber and I remember that
Uber. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Uber guys tell you fun facts.
Aliniambia hapa kuna nyumba ingine ya kina Kenyatta.
Kina Uhuru.
Unaona hapo kwa hiyo gate hapo nyumba kubwa.
Like I think it's one thing that I didn't know back then, and even when people were talking about Kenyatta, I was like, you're young at that time. You're like, okay.
Hey, look at that. Okay, so we jump. This is primary school days. We go. How is your experience besides the rugby around the high school season? What else do you discover about yourself besides the sporting side? Are you good with people?
Yeah.
Mkienda
no, good with people.
The schools coming together. Funkies and all. Yeah.
I was good with people. I was good. I think it's just from the word go. Now that actually I'm looking back into my life for after a very long time. Because when you go to Funkies, I used to have friends in other schools. And it was almost like brotherhood, you know, like somebody's from another school, but you even plan like tupatana tukifika Nairobi, you know, when the F2, you know, like
Nyanza.
Exactly. Like all those places.
Went to Nyanza.
We went to Nyanza. F1 was like the one that was Bomolewa.
Yeah.
So we used to go to all these places with people who I was not even in the same high school with, because we met at sporting events and all. Of course, like any other person, have like multiple girlfriends in different schools.
Speak for yourself.
Unaona vile ameslide tu hapo wako yeye.
I thought it was a thing. Ama ni peke yangu.
Tuko pamoja. Kamande alikuwa anasoma ya kweli.
But mtaedit hapo. My wife knows that I only have.
It depends. Did you meet then?
No, but nimemwambia it's only her since I was born. So if I go back and change that, mtaribu nyumba. So anyway, but back in high school, like I was always social to a fault that in high school, actually, there's a strike that happened. And since this guy was always social I was a social guy to the administration, to the school, the students and all that. I was named as somebody who was like instigating a strike. Anyway, I never got expelled. They just like, there's no evidence to corroborate the mention. So I ended up back. The funny thing is that even looking back right now, I was never a bully. I was never bullied also. The thing is, I was always that nice guy. Like recently I was traveling and I met some guys in the plane, and he looks at me and he's so happy. I look at him, I'm like, I know your face, but I don't know where I met you, because I've met a lot of people. And he's like, nice to meet you. Hey, how are you doing, man? Hey, did I leave you in high school? He thinks that he left me in high school. He talks and I'm like, I look young, but
that's a compliment.
I was so happy. So I have my daughters there. He's talking about his family. Then discover that this guy, I left him in high school and he's in Form 1.
Wow.
Like I had already left. So he's like, oh. And you see his face change. Kukwa like, kai. So at that time, but that's because you do remember people who treated you well. But you remember in detail people who treated you badly. And since this guy cannot remember in detail that I was just a guy, so I think he's just like, I know this guy from high school. He was just that one of those nice guys. So so I was always social from the word go. I was always social. at home, at school, with my family. Yeah, that's something that just came by.
It's interesting you bring up the story of you being social, and whenever something happens, there's a likelihood of you being implicated in any of those, because the same exact
Double-edged
thing
sword.
it's a double-edged sword. It used to happen to me as well. Like I remember even we in the school I went to in the somewhere in the foots of Mount Kenya, there was a strike. I remember during that strike, for some reason I had some wisdom. I was never the wisest person, but I had some wisdom to like stay outside of the door of our class and not do anything deliberately, because I had a feeling that this would
You'd be
happen to me,
implicated.
and it still happened.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, like
Bro,
clockwork,
even
simply
for
because
me-
I'm a social person.
Yeah.
I talk to everyone. I'm always like, I'm the guy who was in all, I don't know if you're like this, I was in all clubs.
Of course.
In all clubs, I was the rugby captain.
Yes.
You know, I was
This was
extremely
always-
social.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. I was friends with the bullies. I was friends with the bullied. You know, but for some reason, even on that day, the day of the strike, I remember like just telling guys like, please don't ban anything, because at the end of the day, you are going to pay for it. I remember being the one who's saying that, and I'm the one who's implicated. So
Yeah.
when I was even coming back, I don't know if it was just an escapist way of people just being like, this guy will never be caught, so send me into jina yake. But anyway, I just remember the funny thing, I'm coming back to school with my dad. And first of all, my mom was like, wewe hata usirudi kwa nyumba yangu, like
Yeah.
I will nimekuban, I've cancelled you in my life. But my dad you're going back is like, he just asked me one question: did you do it? I was like, no. It's like, sour. And that was the end of our conversation.
Look at
He
that.
never asked anything. He was like, did you do it? I
Yeah.
was like, nope, I didn't do anything. He's
Yeah.
like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Went there and he was like, just what do you need? So the guys were like, oh, you're implicated here and here and here and here and here. And he was like, okay, cool. If he was implicated, then is there any evidence that we can follow so that I'm pro punishing him if he did it? But they never had anything. So they just told me like, hey, listen, go home for 2 weeks and come back.
Yeah.
And went
It
home
was
again.
the lazy way of doing things, really.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing. I don't hold any
It's
grudge
not
against-
remedy.
It's not. Yeah. It's like it's just the lazy thing to do,
Yeah.
simply because Maurice is
Yeah,
easy to.
known,
Yeah. It's
But I think
known,
also it's
let's
because
implicate him. And
Yeah.
schools also don't know how to go into the deep issues of what is bringing these things. Of course, some of these things that go on is because there's more layers into it. You know, it's how people are brought up. It's what is going back in society and home. You know, and it translates to schools.
Yeah.
It's almost like in Kenya, it's almost like there's a season when there's a lot of stress in society, and you just see school strikes, school burning up, you know, all those kind of things. So it's not a school problem. For me, I think it's more of a society problem, something that happens in society. And then that pressure boils up in schools.
Yeah.
And then it sparks something up. And the schools don't know how to deal with that, or also how to mitigate with that. That's my own analysis. Because even this bit of like, oh, you are mentioned. Also, like, why did people go on? And I can't even remember the reason why people strike, to be honest. I can't remember for my life. And if you ask even people who led some strikes officially in other schools, they
Look at
don't
why.
exactly like
Yeah.
why. Then like, I don't know, the food was bad. That's it. You're like, okay, but even home food sometimes is bad, you know.
Yeah.
So I just think
Tumekaliwa.
I just think Nile, like there's some pressure that boils up in society, that because we live in a society that also keeps
And at that
it.
age, hard mentality is definitely the hard moves together. Yeah.
So it's just one
lazima
person who's
mchachane.
disgruntled at home.
Wasi,
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
But that's it. That's it.
Then the place is burning. How did this even start? I don't remember.
Wasi. That's how it started.
So it did. Okay. You've spoken of your father.
Yeah.
And that conversation. Is this the first sort of man-to-man conversation you remember having with your dad? Ama, was this your kind of relationship with your dad?
Relationship with my dad. Do I even have a relationship with my dad? let me explain why I'm saying that. Because he's a guy who barely talks. I talk a lot.
Okay.
My mom talks a lot. My entire family talks a lot. He's a guy who will not notice in the room. You'll notice him because he looks like me, exactly like me, but an older version, you know. Like, that's how you notice, like, these people are related, you know. But he never talks. Never, ever talks. The only time that I had a man-to-man conversation with him was a couple of years, 2018. When is 2018? Like 5
So
years
it's very
ago.
recent.
Yeah. During my wedding. That's the only time we sat down. and we kind of had a conversation where he's like, now you're a man, you have your own family, you can learn. Pick some good things from me, don't pick the bad things from me. It was like a very short conversation, but that one, they're like, oh wow, so you also think about these things. But he's fairly a quiet person, but fun to be with when he's tested a little bit. Like he'll dance and sing to all the Lingalas, which we do with him, but never have a conversation. That's not having a conversation. That's like we're able to dance to know.
Is in that most friendships?
Most dads.
I think that
Even dads and friendships. I feel like a lot of friendships are.
Oh yeah, you don't talk.
You
talk.
don't-
Just
don't
hang
talk.
out.
I think we are all men who are brought up through alcohol
Wow.
or some form of depression. Like the father does not want to talk to you because I don't do that. So if I'll only do it when I'm a little bit slightly, not even, you don't have to be a drunkard. Kidogo to I'm drunk kidogo, or I'm intoxicated, or I'm, in some way, that's when I'll have a conversation with you, or actually even show that I'm a dad. Like that's when I'll dance with you. But when you're just in your normal mind frame and you tell your dad like, hey, by the way, uske lingala, like, pan away. I don't do that.
We
But,
don't do that here.
But the funny, so for me, a little bit of conversation. We have a relationship. To be honest, we have a relationship, but it's not as, let's say, there's a father and there's a dad. I think I have a father where he bathed, he's there, he's providing. That's it. The dad is different. The dad goes over and beyond. Like you have a relationship. That's how I'll define it. Father and dad. So I have a father. I have somebody who I can relate to. I can call on to when I'm like, okay, hey, by the way, there's this serious thing that is going on. Show up. But we don't have that situation where it's now like, we are best friends. We plan. Nah. But we're good. We're good.
Is it the same with your siblings?
Yep. Same with my siblings. So if you look at it, my dad and mom separated in 2000s, or actually late 90s, right?
Okay.
My siblings were young. My siblings were like 3, 5. So those guys never had any relationship with me. Like our last one has not had any relationship with my dad. So they don't know him that much. They have a relationship with their father, They don't have a relationship with their dad. And he's tried of late to kind of be a dad, but guys are in their 30s, guys are married, guys are, so it's like, what relationship are we having?
Ship
ishapita, ishaenda. So imeenda.
We'll come back to this. We'll come back
Two
to
quick
this.
thoughts. One,
Yes.
you've said there's father and dad. Namzai, Buddha.
Mzee sa ni yule mwenye, you talk to me when I tell you.
That's the first thought. The second thought is, and this is a bit of a personal story. I've told you about it, right? When I was becoming a dad, I had this idea of, can I talk to a few friends who actually grew up with dads and whatever relationships that they had, and just find out how was that relationship, and is there anything to be learned there in terms of do this or don't do this, right? Obviously, because I did not grow up with a dad, and I'm okay with that, by the way. And then I realized that as I talked to most of my age mates, most of them had a father-son relationship. So I think it's a generational thing.
Yeah, it's a generational thing. Like, and I can tell you an example. It's a generational and cultural, not cultural, because sometimes we mistake culture and bad behavior, to be honest. Sometimes we want to justify that. It's our culture. No, it's bad behavior. Just stop it. It's a generational thing, because I remember, like, I do regular walks on Saturday morning with my daughters every Saturday diligently. We'll be walking either on Ngong Road or, and thanks to the guys who built Ngong Road with a walking path on the side. We are very privileged to be on that part of the town, and we'll be walking with them, and you can see, like, people are like, oh yeah, but you also, when you meet some other friends, you're like, where is their mom? You're like, you don't have to walk with their mom. And this actually came to be when one day I was walking with them. Then we went to met one of my friends who's also a very good lady and a politician from Nyeri. And we sat down with her and we were chatting, and she was helping me, like, the girls are tiny. So she was helping me. She was like, can I take a picture? And just because she was really impressed by the fact that our father can walk with their daughters and take them out. Like, there's a father-daughter day out.
The bar is really high.
Exactly. So she posted the picture on her social, and she's a politician.
Yeah.
Right? And she's known, and she has a huge following. man, the backlash that was there. Like, mama ya wako wapi?
Yeah.
Mama ameenda kuzurura na yamwacha. So Paka was like, okay, so this is how people were brought up.
Yeah.
People were brought up in the sense that bringing up kids is a mother's duty, and not a father or a dad. Actually not a dad. And it was almost like not seen as a good thing, it was like a bad thing that I'm there with girls first of all, and the mother is not there. And I remember she was coming to apologize, like, oh, sorry, I put you. I was like, nah, we see this a lot because it's just a different generation.
But also, this is how we are changing that culture, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
By people seeing you being a dad, then they're like,
Exactly.
okay, there's actually, first of all, they see there's a possibility of this happening.
Yeah.
Let's just start from there.
Even within the families, some guys are like, hey, you just have girls. I'm like, yeah.
Utatafuta kijana?
So are you thinking? I'm like, yeah, I think every day. I'm tafuti ingine.
I don't control my thoughts.
Exactly. So, and being a Luo man, where also this is a bad behavior, where Luo men are also almost like expected to be promiscuous.
Oh.
It's just a common
Yeah.
general thing that is a bad behavior that is perpetuated by, like, oh, this is our culture. It's not our culture. It's bad behavior. You are promiscuous. It's almost like, oh, so ama una ngojea mwingine.
Oh.
So I'm like, no. This is it.
I'm
Like,
good.
this is it. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one last question at this point in time. Despite there not having been a dad-son relationship, does the separation affect you in any way? At least mentally, emotionally, because it's a formational years as well for you.
Positively and negatively sometimes. Positively in the sense that I look at what he didn't do that I would have been done to me as a son, and I do that to my little girls. So that's how it's positively impacting me. Like, I will be there for all the bedtimes if I can. I'll be there for my Saturday walks. I'll be there for all the birthdays. I'll show up. And by showing up, I don't mean like, there's that bit where you show up and you're on your Twitter or Facebook. Or
It's being
the
present.
girls. So it's fully being immersed in that situation. So that's what the positive side. The negative side is always you fantasize of what if things were different? What if he was there? Would life have been different? And the thing that I've found out is I keep on reaching back to a lost cause, reaching back and spending a lot of my energy to trying to bring that relationship to my daughters, like, oh, see your grandfather, see this. And that is the negative effect of it, which I've come to learn that if somebody wants to be in that space, they'll be. If they don't want to, you can't force them.
It's choice.
So it's a to be honest, it's a good experience. I'm not saying, and I don't want people to get the wrong message in terms of like, my dad is an awesome guy. It's a choice that he made. And that's it. Like,
That's
I think,
life.
that's life. Like, I don't want to see that, to say like, oh, he's a bad guy, you should ban him, cancel him. No. He's a cancel him. He's a new culture now. So it's like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He just made that choice that he lives with. It's a choice that I don't agree with, and that's it.
And his generation doesn't know that much better.
Yeah.
Unajua? Okay. So high school is done. What are you thinking, Ukol? Accounts, tuende sasa KCA, ama what is being told to you?
So high school, let me finish off with high school.
Yes.
So I joined rugby by mistake. The school decides to pay for my school fee. Year 3.
This is
year
Agoro
4.
Sare.
Yes.
Because of how good you are at rugby.
Yeah. So they had a sports scholarship. So they pay for people.
Nice. What position are you playing? Winger, obviously.
Hey. At that time, I was a hooker. So if you know rugby, hookers are like these short, big guys.
Yeah.
Who it is the most toughest position in rugby because you're always in batting heads with people.
Yeah.
And I'm a tiny guy. But the advantage that I have is that I'm a tiny, fast, strong guy running against big guys. So I could weave my way around them. So that's the advantage that I had at that time. And it's high school, so you can get away with a lot of things. So they pay for me the last 2 years. That is critical to mention there. So I get into... So I start thinking of like, what do I want to do in college? Of course, my grandfather... the other thing is also my grandfather was an accountant for the county. Way back, like when, so lived in Karioko when Karioko was like a cushy place for
Mm.
government people, you know, went and schooled in London as an accountant. So coming with that background, I'm like, hii ndio kitu tunafanya. Like us guys are doing accounting. I wanted to be a pilot though. Actually an aeronautical engineer. And passed my high school enough to get that. Applied to Wits University and Witwatersrand, which I got in. But the money was obnoxious because they were asking for 4 million Kenya shillings. And at that time, tunaishi high rise, natembea mguu kwenda Kenyatta. I was like, yeah, it happened. So then I fall back to my fallback plan, which is my grandfather was this. So I go to accounting. But the key thing is that at this point in Form 3, when I start playing rugby and I'm being paid school, I start playing rugby now even actively when I'm off school. I come to I'm staying at high rise. I walk from high rise because we don't have a lot of money. And at that time, my mom is like, I only have money to educate you guys. Easy extracurricular is on his enu, you know? So, and she's a teacher. So I walk from high rise to Harlequins.
I see.
See the connection. So I start, and this is in Form 3, Form 4. So every single time I'm on holiday, I can't play for Kenya Harlequins. Every single time I'm on holiday, I can't play for Kenya Harlequins. I actually made the Bamburi Super Series Rhinos in 2008. I made the team while I was in Form 4.
Wow.
That was the time when Colin Sinjera is like also coming up. That's the time when guys, I remember the Rhinos was a franchise between Mwamba RFC and Kenya Harlequins.
Yeah.
So they had the best of the best, you know. Alan Makaka, Sydney Ashoya, those are the guys who are making it. I only made it for one weekend. I wore the jersey. Nobody remembers. I don't even remember. I was just like, I made it. That's it.
You came off the bench.
Yeah, I didn't even play.
You didn't even play.
I was just sat on the bench.
You're number 23. That's never
Exactly.
got in.
I remember just some of Alan Makaka, God rest his soul, like sending messages to Ashoya in Sydney and saying like, hey, this guy is a hot stepper. He doesn't even have a rugby shot. Because my rugby shot, to be honest, was a cut jeans, you know. I was having a jeans. I was like, then you're running there with hot pants, you know. I remember there's a guy.
See that coming.
Yeah, man. I didn't have rugby shorts. I had hot pants. So I was running there, and I remember the trials being, and that's the time that also most of the rugby guys that can be remembered right now also joined. So there was Isaac Adimo, who ended up being a flyer for Kenya 15s. There was William Mbaka.
Patrice was coming in.
Yeah, Patrice had already come a year before,
earlier,
but he was
yeah.
now coming in. So Patrice, Isaac Adimo, Eden Aguero. So we came in at the same time to play for Kenya Harlequins. I was this hooker / winger. I remember those trials, and Victor Sudi at that time is, you know, the fastest, you know, fastest guy. Alan Makaka is the fastest IRB player. Like it's crazy. And there's a guy called Weru. Weru used to play for Mwamba. And it is said that at that trials, I basically dislocated him out of the team completely. And that's how I earned my 20 minutes sitting on the bench. Fame.
Glory.
Exactly. But after that immediately, that was late in Form 4. After that immediately, again, this is how rugby ties in. So remember, I finished school. I'm playing. It's now evident that I'm playing rugby. I've quickly shelved my dream of becoming an aeronautical engineer because of the cost. I get a scholarship at Strathmore.
Whoa.
So
Again, because of rugby.
Because of rugby. So I get a scholarship at Strathmore where I play rugby for them. And now I can do my accounting.
This is the time that Strathmore was really building a solid team, because I remember there was a team that was coming up around that time, Akina Tunjams, Wanjala, Billy Odhiambo.
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, Billy was way later. But
Billy was way later.
Michael Wanjala, so that's the time in 2008, 2009, there's Junior World Rugby Championship here. And the entire team is Strathmore. The captain is Captain Kioko, who's also captain of Strathmore. Yeah. And we have like the Chewais. So, you know, so the entire team is there. So there was two teams from Kenya. There was the main under-19 team, which had like in a Kenny Sindu, you know, all those guys, Andola, who are in the national team. Then there's the second team that also represents Kenya. So, I mean, the second team that also represents Kenya with Oscar Ayodi and who else was in that team that now is Kenya national team. So that's the team that we play with when I'm now on scholarship at Strathmore. I've just joined. And thanks to some people in the rugby team. So when I joined Harlequins, I played for Harlequins until I was year 4. And then I got called up for a scholarship at Strathmore And I remember talking to Charles Cardovillis, who was the coach back then. He's the one who advised me and said, hey, dude, you're a good player. Can you move from being a hooker and go play scrum half or winger? I think you have a good potential. You can be a very physical scrum half. You can be a very physical winger. So go and play that position. And Strathmore have called you. Please don't look back. Go. And the time that he's telling me like this, Strathmore is paying for it's paying for my school, right? It's going to pay for my school.
It's like a full scholarship.
Yeah. Actually, it was 95% scholarship. 95%, for those who don't know, somehow at that time, the BCom was 230,000 a year.
Wow.
It was massive because you earn, it's like 76 a year.
Yeah.
It was 230 a year. So by the time you're done, it's 1 point something million. And these guys are telling me that I'll only pay 25K for my 4 years.
Wow.
My mom didn't think twice. And finally it was paying off. She was like, Sasa,
Yeah.
that extracurricular thing is working. Go to rugby.
And
You have to
play rugby.
play rugby.
Because she's reminding you.
Yeah, she was
You
waking
don't have
me up.
practice today.
Yeah. She was like, and a gym. I was like, hey, gym. But at home, there was my eye. I've read somewhere, I've been told like if you eat eggs, you become big. Utakula in my eye. So there's my eye for Maurice, manze. So that's in joining Strathmore.
Yeah.
And Charles, thanks to Charles, he tells me, Charles Cardovillis tells me, go. And I couldn't imagine what I'm leaving, because at that time also Kenya Harlequins had massive sponsorship, like from Nivea, Capital FM. Like they had sponsorship for socks, for shoes, for shorts, for t-shirt, and the general like as a player,
Cadbury's.
Exactly, Cadbury. So as a player, I would leave every weekend with almost 6,000 Kenya shillings. My fare has been taken care of. Now I'm no longer walking from Hi-Res to Harlequins to train. Now I have money for transport, because there's money in the club.
Yeah.
And that's what sponsorship can do for sports, And I have 5,000 Kenya shillings that I have here that could support me, support my farm, So I get to Strathmore, and I Strathmore also, because you're there with the best of your age caliber. I end up playing for them for almost 8 years, or 9 years, just playing for them. We win. I was part of the team that won the Rugby 7 series. For Strathmore.
You made the finals of Kenya Cup.
Finals, I've made the finals of Kenya Cup. Played against Nakuru, thrashed us, and then I left. Life just became life after that. So you can see how rugby from high school to that point plays in, and also my social nature also.
Look at that. And hey, so a couple of things come in mind. How is so we've seen how mom is reacting to all this. How is the rest of the family picking all this? So from the sisters to your dad as well, because I guess he's seeing a version of himself, but only this time
the
through
sportsman.
rugby. Is there a conversation there? Hata ikiwa ni hiyo kidogo na kuona kijana.
No. There's like peripheral conversations. I agree with you. Like those moments of like, hey, how is rugby going? Rugby guys, he didn't know much about it, but he's like, you need to eat well, you need to do this well. So there's those kind of like light touch conversation, not very deep, but very high level.
Yeah.
Like you're doing well, you're playing, you're
I
keeping
see you,
yourself
son.
busy. Yeah, I see you, son. And also the thing that rugby also helped a lot, it just kept me busy, man. Because you're training almost 30 hours a week and you have school. Like you have no time to think about anything.
Yeah.
First of all, you have games every Saturday. So that means your Fridays are gone. There's no partying. The only time you party is Saturday, and it's limited partying because you are tired as hell. So you wake up on Sunday, and Sunday is the day that you are nursing your tiredness and your...
Unakula mayai.
Unakula mayai yako. So that's the day I kula mayai. Then Monday you do it again. You go to work, to school. So there's never time for like other things. So that's how rugby also just saves my social, my life basically.
Yeah. And how's you, so in these 4 years, because obviously you're doing your bachelor's degree, are you doing CPAs as well? Or CPAs come after?
Yeah. So I'm doing CPAs at the same time. Actually, no, CPAs come later on. So I'm doing my bachelor's degree.
I'm playing
rugby. I'm also doing my businesses. Because remember, as a primary... at that time, my mom was a primary school teacher in a public school. So you can almost imagine the financial constraints that, to be honest, we need to pay teachers well. Which is funny. Everyone has gone through teachers' hands of some sort. Teachers are respected in our communities, but they are the people that we don't also pay or respect that much when we become politicians or
That is true. It's interesting because the three of us are
Oh, serious?
kids of,
Yes, watoto wa walimu.
we've had this
Watoto
conversation.
walimu hawana tabia mzuri.
This is true. Na handwriting mzuri
handwriting
sana.
Wait, able tell me which pastor's kid has a good behavior?
Good question.
Very few. Ni mmoja tu kwa hivyo. So like, but if you look at data, pastors' kids are wanakuwa left. Like, hey,
Wa walimu ni
Walimu
watoto.
wanafaa
Walimu
kuwa
wazuri,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Busy
So-
being born.
and every single time you're being born, man. So anyway, so the thing is like, so money was not something easy to come by. You know, it's not like that we get that is just in abundance in our family. So I do business on the side, and that's my passion now for entrepreneurship. So one thing that I did at that time, in the rugby culture, there was no these t-shirts for fans. So we started at Strathmore.
Oh,
And we build like a lot of t-shirts for a lot of clubs, you know, and that's what makes us money. And there was money in that business, because I can tell you, we used like 30K for the finals, Strathmore against Nakuru.
Nakuru.
We used 30K to make almost 300 t-shirts and print, because one of my friends, Nick Mwendwa, who, let me just shamelessly plug him. So this guy, if you watch Nashinsky's song, the first one that had like animations of words turning, I can't remember.
Can
Mungu
I be
Pekee.
free?
Mungu Pekee.
Mungu Pekee.
So he's the one who did that video like words.
Okay.
So
okay.
he's really good at his
Shout
tech
out to
stuff.
Nick Mwendo.
Exactly.
I thought it was Nick Mwendo, the
Oh,
guy
the
for
sports guy.
football.
Oh no, not that one. Yeah, not that one.
Not that one.
Not that one. Let me leave it at that. Then so he designs. I do the printing and all that. We produce 300 t-shirts. We sell them for 1,000 shillings. So
It's good business.
dude, I think we made over 300K.
Wow.
And we were in our third year, fourth year. No, at that time I'm first year of work, and Nick is also first year of work, because we were also in Strathmore together. So it was good money. So we made money at that time, as people who were hustling. So the entrepreneurship starts coming in. Like,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
there's something at Strathmore. Also, we notice that, you know what? Everybody. By the way, almost 70 or 90% of the students at Strathmore are on scholarship of some sort of form.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when people talk about Strathmore being not for profit, it is.
Makes sense.
Yes, the people get paid well. The people who pay well. But there's a lot of people who are being supported.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Because like the rugby team, I suppose most of them
have
gone through Strathmore through scholarships.
through scholarships, like
Yeah.
most of them, and they end up being people in life, you know, because we're giving that chance.
It's weird because like life comes around. So a few weeks back, I can't remember which episode it was, we had Joshua.
Yes.
Joshua Chisanga.
Chisanga.
Played
And
for Strathmore for a short stint.
a short stint, right? So that time he was the SNC at Queens, and so we asked him, which young players are you excited about? So this is how the story comes around. He talks about a young kid. His name is Gabriel Ayimba. Gabriel Ayimba,
plays for Strathmore.
he came to Queens when he left high school, and then same story. Now he's at Strathmore. They picked him up from Harlequins, and we were like, yes, go.
Yep.
Go do your thing. Go get your education. Now he's playing for Strathmore. So same exact
Seventh,
story.
yeah.
I actually thought utasema, there's this young cat who like he over hot pants and unajua ni full circle.
Akachange hot pants na kofia siku hizi.
At least Gabi's in the rugby circles. He's taken well care of.
That's what's up.
I had a question which I was leading up to. So, what's your typical day? Because you're in at this point in campus. Remember, in campus, like for us, it was like a very easy time. Of course, there's a school part, but if you're able to take care of, you're judicious enough, and you have some intellect. See, you wake up at whatever time. If you have a class, then you go. If you don't, then life is very easy. But here you are, uko BCom, you're hustling, and you're playing like rugby, Kenya Cup, because you're competing against the best teams in Kenya. How's your typical day like?
So typically because of that, so we used to, I'll start from Monday gym session at Strathmore. So every single time we'll be at Strath at 5 a.m. Yeah. So we'll walk from, because I used to stay in high rise, so I just walk to high rise, walk to Strathmore gym. It's not a fancy gyms. Kuna chuma. So we'll lift chuma there, you know. And I remember we used to make fun because we used to say, see Mawe, Mawe, you can lift, then you end up walking like this because one of your shoulders is stronger than the other one.
Yeah.
So this one was at least well balanced. So we
Yeah.
had like a well balanced body shape and all that. So gym, then immediately shower, go to class. But also Strathmore had this thing where if you miss 33% of the total classes, you're not sitting for that exam.
Yeah.
And also what they have for sports people, even if you're on scholarship, there's a certain level of grade you cannot go down. So you have to keep that going and you have to keep this going. So also from sports perspective, if you miss any number of sports, your scholarship is on review.
Whoa.
So it's serious. So we used to go there, gym, then go to class, then finish class, then we go for Monday training in the evening around 4:35, train until 7, walk back home or get lucky and get dropped by one of your fancy friends home. Then repeat again on Tuesday. So Tuesday, maybe it's not gym. You wake up normal, you go to class. So that was it. Then on Fridays, though, Strathmore has this thing where half day, it's like there's just events and people meeting. And they started this thing in our year because most employers who are coming to Strathmore, at least this is what I heard from back then, was that they used to say like Strathmore students are good, but they're not sociable. Like you're awesome, but they're not sociable as compared to UON or USIU. So in a sense of making people more sociable, they build this student center. So if any Strathmore student is listening, they know how old I am because I was there when there was no SBS building. I was there when there was no the student center building. Those were not there. It was a hockey pitch and a basketball court. So they built this student center where people go on Friday evening just to chill and story, and there's numerous events, and I loved it. So that's where I used to go every single evening on Fridays. After we left there, we will probably end up somewhere in Nairobi West. And Nairobi West was just like, you go there for a drink, then you're like, you go home because tomorrow you're going for a game on Saturday. So that's where we'll end up. And Saturday the whole day was rugby and maybe party in the evening. So it was never always serious. I partied, but my life was also fun. Yeah.
There was a good balance.
There was a good balance.
I feel like rugby gives you that.
Yeah. There's always a time my mom was always like, man, this guy used to party. So I used to party back. I find myself, I'll come back on Monday morning, like shouting haraka, I go back to school. And she's like, now this one, aki ukimaliza shule.
Utakuwaje?
But umaliza.
Yeah.
Angekuwa na faith watoto walimu. Okay,
we behave.
So somewhere in your story you said no, but that was first year. That's what you said, first year at work. Yeah. So what's this first work experience and where are we?
That's a good question. So first year work, rugby comes in again. Sorry guys, you'll hear a lot of rugby. There's a point in
How you
rugby
apologize? We can talk about rugby the whole day.
Kuna pali rugby itaisha. I promise. So I go for my first interview. My first interview is at So internships, those internships during high school, during college. I end up working at I end up showing up at a show. Actually, I am featured at a show called I'm a Cooperator by CIC, where they bring people to do like physical challenges. It's like Survivor, but so I do that. And I was probably because rugby guys voted me in to represent Strathmore. So it was like an inter-university challenge. But then they end up giving me my first internship because I went through this challenge. So CIC gives me the first internship. But I left after a week. The reason why I left, those ones I'll not say publicly, but it was not me, it was them. So I leave, but then I get my first job again at General Motors East Africa.
Okay.
Where I go as an accountant. I work there kidogo as an assistant accountant. I work there kidogo. Then I come back to finish school now. When I finish school, my first interview at a company called FarmChem. FarmChem, for those people who are in agriculture, they were very big in agrochemicals. They used to supply the entire country. It was a family company run by somebody called Mulinge family they are apparently a very famous Kamba family. That's all I know. They were launched in 1976. So I go there, I work. But the first interview that I have, I sit down and I tell, this guy looks at my CV, he's like, so you played rugby? And you talk rugby for 20 minutes. Apparently, this guy had a cousin who played for the national team. Remember that national team in 2009? Played there, and he was a fan. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Now let's get back to the interview. So you did accounting at Strathmore. Okay, cool. Ask me 2 questions, literally 2 questions. He's like, okay, thanks, I'm done. Then I by the time I get to the gate, I get a text like, report on Monday. That was on
Wow.
a Wednesday. And that's how I got my first job.
Look at that.
Through this guy who I knew loved rugby, and I got my first job. I left, I got my first job there, worked for 7 or 6 months. It was a great company. It made me learn a lot as an accountant, actually. Yeah, that's the place where I worked as an accountant, really.
Yeah.
But I'm working there and playing rugby. So it's on Mombasa Road, but I'm playing rugby at Strathmore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are you living?
At this time, I'm still living no, at this time we've left. I'm living in Langata now.
By yourself?
No, with my family still.
Oh, okay.
My farm. So I didn't move out. Actually, I didn't move out until I met my wife.
Look at that.
A few months before I met my wife.
Oh, we will come to that.
Yeah,
That's
come to
an
it.
It was interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was the only boy, and my mom is making eggs, sitoki.
Si maisha mabaya.
Yeah, mom.
Niko sawa.
This period between joining Strathmore, moving from Harlequins to Strathmore, playing rugby, getting through your degree to your first job in accounting, what are the maybe 2 or 3 lessons that you carry from this season that you carry to date?
So there are 2 things that we didn't. It was at this point. I think I should just print them somewhere, and they become my life mantra. Every single time when I'm talking to my sisters and myself, because this is the learning that I got for myself, was just do your best. Just show up and do your best. And the reason why I use that word is because more than often you're not in most of these things you're barely invited to that position. It's because you've done your best, then they invite you. Or it's because you've done your best, then they appoint you. So I always tell them, like, just in whatever you're doing, do your best. And funny thing is that is the same mantra that I came to learn or came to at Strathmore. So Strathmore has this thing called 27. They say every single time, if you know a Strathmore player, they'll say 27. And the 27 for them is, if you total up 365, which is 365, 247. If you total up those numbers, it brings back to 27. And 27 is basically what they're trying to tell you. Instead of me telling you, like, do your best every single time, they just tell you 27. So do your best 365 days, 24/7.
Every minute you're doing your best.
So that's one. Then the second thing is that I also learn about this period is do your best always. But the other thing is I've lost my trail of thought. But I do remember that one of the things that I also told my sisters a lot is just be a good person. Actually, we used to say be a nice person. Usimtumpoa. Like, just think of the other person in a good light, even though the situation might be different. Like, just think of the other person as a good light. So those are the 2 things that I learn and
nice.
keep
and still
Okay. So the 7-month job, is that the final accounting gig?
That's the final accounting gig.
Okay. So what happens? What happens for you to go Akianani? Not accounts for me.
So I think context would be nice for this. So the first accounting job, so at FarmChem, the first thing that I do is, so I'm a junior accountant. I join and I find these guys were really awesome, ready to teach me, and I learn a lot. But it was a small company that was heading down financially. Agrochemicals was disrupted, and the people who are bringing in importations have really reduced the revenues. So the company is struggling. And when companies are struggling, there's also a culture of pulling and tearing each other apart. So I joined there, and I'm on the accountant. And when people are tearing, the only thing that people go back to is money. If you're paying them well and you're tearing them up, they'll be like, at least niko na pesa. But sina pesa and you're tearing me up, that was a stressful bit. And I'm the accountant. Yeah. So you can imagine how the experience was for me there. But I learned a lot. The reason why I leave, actually, is because I start seeing, like, I'm not this guy who will be in this room and I'm moving papers here and there and arranging files, because accountants are awesome people. They have good jobs, but it was not for me. And I wanted a job where I can meet people, I can talk to people, I can be part of their solutions. And if you're an accountant who's dealing with payables, you're paying people, there's very little help you can offer them. Because if you don't have money, you don't have money. So whatever help you want to offer them is only hot air. So that's when I make a decision, like, what, it's time for me to do something that makes me happy. I don't know what it is, but I just try out multiple things that have human-facing kind of interactions.
Yeah.
That's when I jump.
So
out.
what's your framework for jumping to the next thing? Do you have any? You might not know the thing very precisely, but do you have a sort of framework of how you're going to look for this thing?
Yeah, I talk to people. Like, so throughout, I've always had people that, the way you have people that you admire, maybe because of what they have done or what they're doing. So I randomly ask them questions like, hey, so what do you think of me? And somebody says, are you you're a nice guy. You're a sociable guy. Oh, okay. But I mean, if you were to employ me, what job would you give me? Maybe business development, go talk to people. I'm like, so there's something called business development. What does the business development mean? It's marketing and sales. So I have to sell things. Okay, so anyways, through interactions with other people, that's when I get to know, like, actually you can do program management, business development, all those kind of things. And program management, if you look at it, has a bit of budgeting and accounting in there. Business development still, kuna some pesos na move up. So not too far, but it was more about how does my skill set, which is accounting, and my personality fit in.
Yeah.
So the marriage of those two is what kind of happened. But it was more of talking to people.
Yeah, you're going for Ikigai.
Exactly.
The center.
The center
spot. Okay. So what's your next job? Where do you jump after this? So you've talked to people, you've made this evaluation.
Yeah.
You're seeing how this could come together. What's your next stop?
And how long is that gap before the next?
So, the first thing, and especially, and I'll not lie that, I was this person who was composed and always knew his future. At that point, I was moving to something that is passionate to me, but also the money was important. I was like, apana, Niki move, it has to make sense from a financial point. So I get a very short-term contract with Sanofi Aventis, which is a pharmaceutical company, French pharmaceutical company. And I get it to be a business analyst. Business analyst, mostly it's like, again, Excels, but at least you're meeting and talking to people. So I get to work there, and that's when I start my CPAs. Because I'm still hangover with accounting. I'm like, nimeacha accounting, but acha tu nifanye. Just in case nirudi back to accounting, I have some qualifications. And also, I know most Kenyans can relate to this, or even some people who look at their CV can relate to this. I'm like, I don't want a gap to be seen on my CV that, I didn't do anything accounting. So let me just do this accounting so that if somebody asks, I'll be like, I went back to school to do accounting. That's why there's a gap. So I go back, do my accounting.
How long is this after
leaving Famken?
Yeah.
Immediately.
Oh, okay.
Like I left immediately. And I remember having the conversation with the CEO. I went to the CEO and said, I am resigning because I want to go back to do accounting and I want to pay for it. And I know that the salary you're giving me cannot sustain this. And he's like, no, how about we pay for it? And I was like, something that my mom told me, ukishatapika ulambi matapiko. So for me, I was like, nimetoka, I'm not coming back. Because, you can leave, then they're like, we'll pay. Then you come back and they're like, nalisema. So I was like, cheers, man. Let's be friends. So I left, and that was immediately. So I leave 1 week later. I'm at Sanofi. I start my work. I work with awesome people there. A different culture because it's managed by French guys and it's multinational. And the first time I'm working with the white dudes in my office, I'm like, hey, so Wazungu also know life this way, Okay, so that's it. Kind of taught me another perspective about life. So I work there for some time as I'm doing my CPAs. Then eventually I make that decision. I'm like, you know what, it's been almost 1 year in this place. I'm not going back to accounting. I'm CPA 5. I'm done. Because there's one unit called financial reporting that I failed like 2 times. I was like, apana, this thing, I cannot waste my money for one thing. That's it. And I call it and I was like, no, I'm done. So every single time my mom is like, don't be a quitter. She gives me that, I have a dream kind of speech. I'm like, I'm not doing it. So
it's also being, part of quitting is also knowing what to quit and the right time to quit. You can't carry on.
You can't carry on. So
is there a point that you can look back and say this is when, for lack of a better word, this is when the camel's back was broken? Like this is the point you're like, this accounting thing, I'm done? Or was it just a series of events and you just digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and then eventually, boom, it's done?
It's almost like, I think for me, it's like when you've grown up with not so much going on, you want to hold on to what you have. So for us, we grew up in that situation where we didn't have a lot moving around. So you want to hold on to accounting because you think it's a lifeline, right? and you leave a job, you leave this accounting role, going to this role that is totally different, but you still want to hold on to that accounting role because you're like, what if this does not work? Niko na hii safety net, I can come back here. But 1 year into the line, you notice that this safety net is no longer a safety net. It's just something that you're dragging along with you. It's actually becoming a burden because
You're dragging a corpse.
Exactly. Well, I've become a business analyst. I'm more into admin role, more program management. And why am I holding on to this accounting? What is it going to help me? And that's when the coin drops after a year and me failing this unit again. And I was like, why am I dragging this thing? Mentally, it's financially, because I'm working and I'm paying my CPAs by myself at this point, and I'm not passing it, and I don't like it, and I don't like the job. I'm just doing it as a safety net.
Yeah.
There's no upside, really.
So for me, it was investing in this safety net that is not going to be making me happy. So I dropped it and joined this other side where I was just like, okay, you know what? Let me give my 100% on my work right now, which was more program management, more admin kind of work.
And simultaneously, you also leave Sanofi? Or
I eventually leave.
time?
I eventually leave because Strathmore, my alma mater, comes knocking. And they're like, hey, we actually have a role at the MBA department. Because remember when I was still in college, I was hustling a lot, right? So we were printing t-shirts, you're selling them. I was also working at the business school as a contractor. Sorry, I was doing like a lot of things as a contractor. At that time, Strathmore had this thing where their MBA students or their master's students are treated well. So they had this thing where they'll file their cases into like folders and give them like iPads that have all the cases online. But somebody had to file those cases, those 2 papers for 65 students, So we'll go there with the 2 or 3 rugby players, and they'll give us opportunities as contractors. They'll pay you per hour, and you'll just file those papers for those guys. So that by the next time when they're coming for class or starting their units, they have a folder that is packed really well, with separators and everything. So I did that, and I got my money. I would leave niko hapo na like 5,000, 6,000, and you're in Kole. That's big money.
That's a lot of money,
so
man.
this is back in the day.
I will stop eating there's a place called Siwaka where you go eat and ukitoka unanuka moshi, So I stopped eating where kunuka moshi. I went to cafeteria where I'm eating. So I would ball for 1 week.
So Strath come calling.
And they're like, yo, there's this role, do you want to take it up? It's a program management role for the MBA class. So I'll be the ones who were overseeing the classes. And I jump immediately because Strathmore was good to me for the scholarship one. But also it's just nostalgia. You're like, let me go back to a place where I'm familiar. I know people, like it's not like a place where I've been mistreated, and it's closer to home. So I go back and work at Strathmore in the MBA department. I think at that time the MBA department was 3 or 4 years old, so it's still very young.
Yeah.
And it was awesome networking. Remember my meeting people? So each class has 65 people. And let me tell you, these are people with capital. Because this is like the KRA commissioner, the legal secretary for
This
Posta.
is the executive MBA.
Exactly. Like I'm meeting the dons.
CEOs.
I remember in media we had Waweru Njoroge. Like
I remember I was working at Standard, and I think the current CEO, who was a CFO,
Orlando Liomu was there
I
in my
remember
class.
that.
Like,
okay.
So like top of the top, those are the guys I'm meeting, and I'm networking with them. The doctors, like the deputy director of KNH, the current National Police Service chairperson, Eliud Kinuthia, like all these are guys that I'm interacting with in class. Typically these are people that you'll book appointments 6 months before to see. These are people who book appointments with me now. I was like, hey.
As the admin.
Because you're managing them. You're kind of giving them best experience in class. And talking to brands, if you go to EBL and say, hey, these are the caliber of students that we have, will you give us like drinks for free? They're like, yes, please. So I'm now meeting not only the class, which is rich, but also meeting guys outside the class, because they're like, oh, you're managing that kind of people. How do we talk to them? How do we get access to them? You are the one who's also organizing like guest speakers. So, and everybody wants to be a guest speaker at a university.
Of course.
And
so
in this program,
particular,
absolutely.
So you reach out to Julius Kipngetich at KWS at that time. He's like, please, yes. You reach out to he's called Caesar Mwangi, who's now the currently DVC. He was the CEO of Mater Hospital. They come because they're like, I want to be there. So all of a sudden, I'm moving from this point where I've been helped by rugby to now moving to a point where I'm being helped by my nature of being social and sociable.
Engaging a different gear.
The pieces are coming in together
Right?
so nicely, man. Yeah.
So right before we go too far, for it to be awkward to come back to this moment,
Yeah, good.
I'm curious about just a couple, not that long, a year back, I guess, in this story, when you quit, from the other gig. You'd find that most people are asked to leave a job, unajua, or you're fired, ama gig inaisha, but you are in a position of privilege where you step forward and say, it is time for me to. What's your mind space then when you're thinking, even ndio nitamwambia, are you thinking, I'll do notes, then go and say I quit? Ama are you thinking, are you rehearsing in front of a mirror? How are you going about the preparing for the big, I'm done with this place?
So to be honest, I don't like quitting.
Okay.
And also I don't like people quitting on me. So this was a bit where, and these people didn't quit on me.
Yeah.
They trained me, they worked on me. So I felt like I'm betraying them.
You owe them
100%.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you, I rehearsed in my head. It was the most stressful bit of that particular piece of work. Because it's not like they are bad people. They're just some things that you don't agree with. Or it's not that time of your life where you want to agree with them. I was not financially stable. I needed something that is financially stable. And also, you don't just tell someone like, nakuacha kwa sababu huna pesa.
Well, that happens.
I mean, it does. But at that time, I was just like, man, so how do I tell these people? Like, it was so stressing. And I loved the it was like we were all in a crucible where we were struggling. And it was tough. I rehearsed, yes. I asked other people, like, how do I do this? And the funny thing is like for me, my mom has always been my advisor. But the funny thing, the kind of advice, looking back, the kind of advice sometimes I can party and like, hey, if I follow that one,
Hey, no, man.
But like, go tell them that you can even do it part-time. You're not leaving them just because you don't have time now.
Yeah.
Like if I did that, I would have chomad. I would have burnt that whole bridge, I would have burnt it, carried it and buried it. So I was like, apana, let me do this. Because I was talking to a lot of friends also. So I'm very tight with my college friends who advised me throughout. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least we get lessons from around that preparation season. So
because to be honest, like, if you can't, there's a level of vulnerability, but there's also a level of just saying too much. Or let me use this TMI. There's a level of too much information. So it's a balance of like, I want to be vulnerable to these guys who I trust, but also don't want to give too much information that everybody knows you're dirty lean.
Yeah.
So for me, I've had the privilege of having this close group of friends who I could reach out and be like, how would you do it? This is the thing I'm struggling with. And they'll be like, okay, this is how you can work on it. So that bit of opening up, being a bit vulnerable, has really helped me to kind of maneuver some of these things.
Yeah.
But also sometimes because you're saying it, some people are like, you know what? Actually, I know somebody who did this. And I've been privileged also to have people who just give connections, network advice, and all that. And I've also tried to do that because the more you give, the more you get.
Yeah. I'm super sure a lot of us are now, as we are listening, we are excited and curious about how you get to Meta and how you get to where you are now. Yeah. So how close is it from the season at Strathmore?
At Strathmore.
Yeah.
Actually, the next one is now Meta.
Good.
Yeah,
so how
it's
do you
close.
jump
Let's
in?
jump.
So it's close. We jump to that. So I'm working at Strathmore. I work there for 4 years. Super networked, because for 4 years it means you've managed over 200 students.
4 years. This is your longest job.
This is my longest job.
Yeah.
This is my longest
Yeah.
job. And do you
Must
know why
have been great because 4 years is a long time.
Yeah,
Man.
it is. And the reason why I stay there is because Strathmore is a good employer. The good employer in the sense that, let me give you an example. I work for Strathmore. I play rugby. I break my leg, my left metatarsals. And this is now a story of how rugby dies.
Yeah.
Literally with my leg, So I break all my left metatarsals.
Wow.
Like broken fingers. And now I was the fastest person. Still fast, but you're not as fast as you are. Because now you are limping and they still have like a metal in there, right? But they take care of all the costs plus my 2 months transport to work. Like, plus even like food apple, for recovery. I'm like, hey,
Physio.
Physio, everything. I'm like, Sitoki, I'm here.
Wow.
This is where I'm staying. So I work with them. They have the best packages in terms. It's not like their best pay. They pay you out of the world, but they'll take care of you over and beyond just the pay. And they build a community, and we're young guys coming into like this new thing. Remember, it was 3 or 4 years old, so we're building it. The dean at that time, Dr. Njenga, is also like a lively guy, inspirational. So I stay there for long. We are a tight-knit team. Then through my networking bit, so remember I have this network that I've built in Strath. We even tried to start businesses with some of the students. Like one of the things that we tried was a version of Sandy.
Wow.
Before Sandy. And we built it with a guy called Daniel Maine, who's now at MIT. But we didn't go further because the students left school. These are things I was doing part-time as I'm working, and I get to meet these people.
Let me guess. It's because you're interacting with a lot of people who are running businesses and CEOs, and so you're getting a lot of ideas. You're learning how to run a business. Then you go to the students. Can we do this?
Can we do this? And that's how we start. So the other thing that I also do at this time is I also start. Now that's also the start of the startup culture in about 2013, 2012. I mean, it had already started kitambo, but formally. It had already started way back. Pesapal, iHub, Times, Cellulant, 3 Mice. Those are like in late 90s, early 2000s. It already started. 2006, M-Pesa, So it already started, but not formally. But now in 2013, 2014 is where now you're starting to see like formal co-working spaces, formal communities building up.
Stories being told about these companies.
And about the country. So I started going to these events. I remember meeting a couple of founders, Kago Kagishiri of Veneza. I meet, Felix Kimari of Toto. It's called Toto Health. So I meet a couple of people within that community while I'm working at Strathmore. Then Moringa School starts something called, was it Nairobi Tech Week?
Nairobi Tech Week, yeah.
Nairobi Tech Week, which at that time I was working at Strathmore and they're hosting it at Strathmore. So I'm in charge of giving them space.
Is iLab there this time?
At that time, iLab now has started.
Okay.
So there's the startup bar that is going on. I'm working at Strathmore, but I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about networking. I'm keeping my ears on the ground and listening like, so there's this thing called startups, or there's iLab that has launched, there's iHub that had launched, there's all these things going on, there's Sam Gishuru doing awesome things.
There's a community of founders.
So I start attending those events in the evening when I'm not at work, and I start networking and meeting these people. Then Nairobi Tech Week comes to Strathmore, and we give them space. We give them the auditorium. I'm in charge of that space, and the MBA department. So I'm there, and I meet a guy, Singaporean, and I meet him. He's called Aaron Fu. Aaron Fu at this time is in charge of a company called Nest VC, which is a venture capital company. So he joins. I meet him. Wait, let me fast forward. So I had kind of bumped into him, but I didn't remember him. And I bumped into him because at this point I'd interacted with my wife at some point in my rugby life at Strathmore, and we got close, and my wife hosted a party and Aaron Fu came. At that time we were dating. Aaron Fu came and I met him and we just crossed. So we host Nairobi Tech Week at Strathmore. Aaron Fu comes back again. He's telling me, now I get to know him. He's telling me that he's launching something called Nest VC, which is a venture capital company. I have my accounting background and I know what VCs are. So he comes in and he says, hey, I'm looking at launching something. I'm looking to invest in startups and I'm looking to support startups here. I'm like, okay. So he tells me like, what can you help me with? And in my mind of doing a lot of things, I'm thinking it's a consulting gig. I'm like, hey, consulting in Meiva. So he tells me like, okay, what do you think? And I'm like, you could design like an entrepreneurship program where, yes, you're investing, but how do you upskill guys before you invest in them? But also, since you're investing, you need to co-invest with people. So how do you bring this community where you bring the investors, you bring the startups and match them, and you also put in money? And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Do you mind like doing like a 3 months implementation of this thing you're thinking of? And give me maybe in the next 2 days. So I do it as a pitch deck. I sent it to him. And I'm like, okay, this Jobo is coming through, So at that time, my contract with Strathmore is coming to an end. Strathmore has this thing where they give you a 3 or 4 year contract. And when it comes to an end, they don't fire you. Now you move to be full-time, you move to be pensionable. So you're basically becoming now, full-time, like legit stuff.
Permanent and PNP.
Permanent and pensionable. So I'm there. And they have this big thing where they give you a gratuity, they look at your salary for the last 4 years and they give you 10%. Bam. So I was coming up to that and I was so excited. And the MBA students usually go to Spain for a tour and all that. So this was my year to go to Spain. So I'm excited. At Strath, I'm excited. On this other side hustle, I'm also excited. Like I'm consulting for this new thing that I'm passionate about. Then he comes back with a contract. After 1 week, he's like, dude, here's a contract. We're actually launching something called Meta. Would you come like be part of it? And I'm like, okay. So here I'm waiting for this big money and traveling to Spain, you know? And huku unanipatia offer of something that I'm very passionate and I like about, and I've been part of building it. And I jumped the ship after getting my gratuity.
Okay. I was almost going to kick you out of this room, but
I know there's that bit of like, I'm a nice guy. He gets his gratuity. No, I took it. I waited, got it. Then I was like, guys. But I was like, Spain tutapatana. Spain, hapo ni sawa. But gratuity. But they were like, yeah, nice. Take your gratuity. It's 4 years. Take the laptop, take the gratuity, take all these things. So it's 4 years in their books. They have written off the laptop. It's diminished. So I get my laptop. I get the gratuity. I tell them I'm leaving, but not leaving in bad faith. I go to the dean. I talk to everyone. I'm like, I'm leaving because of this opportunity that has come up. I think it's a good thing for me, and even for the institution. I see like we'll be working with you guys a lot. So I go to Nini, and the first day that I report in a suit and everything.
That's what you used to at Strath, right? Yeah, very formal.
Very formal. And I remember they're telling me like, oh, the onboarding will happen at Brew Bistro, 40 Tower, 11. I was like, okay, in a suit at 7 p.m. I was like, first of all, why are you doing Brew Bistro? Why are you coming to onboard me at 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
So kumbe that's the onboarding culture in startups.
Oh, yeah.
I'm there in my suit at Brew Bistro. I'm told to, hey, chukua jag. I'm like, hey. So this is how it is.
It's a culture shift, kabisa.
I'm thinking maybe it's just a welcoming thing. So the next day I go to work. I go with my...
This is 14 Riverside, right?
No.
Or at this point you've not
At this point, we've not even gone to 14 Riverside. And I'll tell you how this was crazy. Because at this point, Meta does not exist.
Okay.
It's an idea.
So there is Nest VC and Meta is just an idea.
I didn't know.
Okay.
So me, I've left my cushy jobs, my gratuity. I'm like, hey, and it doesn't exist. There's no physical space. We're working at a co-working space. What is this co-working space? We're working at Foundry Africa on Raptor Road, run by Roy Washira. So we're working there. Then they tell me, tomorrow come to Foundry. I've signed the contract. I've left my Strathmore.
Yeah.
So I go this place. The first day I show up, again, I'm coming from this culture where everything is formal. Show up again in a suit. But now I've just, dampened it kidogo. I've jacket,
you've removed the
t-shirt.
T-shirt.
And now you'll see how the heart story comes in. Yeah. And I'm in my, my official shoes, my official everything. I come with my stapler, my paper punch. I come with my, pen holder, my intray thing. Like, Mimi, I'm formal. I come in, the first thing is everybody laughs. Like, hey. Pack, I've marked my stapler, Maurice. They're like, that's how you're coming to this office. I was ready to work, man. They laughed.
What's the congregation that trans Strathmore? You know the name?
Opus Dei.
Opus Dei. You're coming from Opus Dei.
Oof. So these guys are like, bro, we don't even have a desk. You sit anywhere you want. So these staplers, kila mtu hapa. And there's one of my colleagues who stole all my pens. Like, for some reason, it's the pens she was stealing. Yeah. Karen. Every single day, I'm like, kuna pen in a miss going. So then there's no structure. So Meta doesn't exist. There's no structure. I'm told, bro, this is the idea.
It's your job.
It's your job to figure it out. It's your job to figure out the structure of the organization. We have 4 people, but they don't know what they're doing. So you figure it out. Oh, and we don't have money, and we need a space. And we have your salary for the next 7 months. If you don't figure out in 7 months, itabidi umonge na Strathmore kuchukue back ama we figure it out. And because Nest VC's money had ran out. Nest VC is based out of Hong Kong. So there are these guys who made their money and they wanted to invest in Africa. So it was an interesting time, and that's how I joined into Nest. So there's a whole story of how I joined, and how I end up being part of the team at Meta, and how I end up wearing the hat.
How do you end up wearing the hat?
Yes.
I think
wearing the hat.
We can spend a bit more time.
Kidogo, so cool. Quickly. So I go to the first meeting that I have is to talk with KPMG on how to do an innovation challenge for insurance, which I think there needs to be innovation in insurance in this country. There's no way where it's only 3% of Kenya that is
insured.
And it's because it's expensive. Also, it's you're promising guys that I'll give you money when you're sick. I'm promising guys I'll give you money when you're dead. I don't want to know those bad things. Give me money now. Anyway, there's a whole innovation that needs to be done there. So I go to KPMG and it's a meeting for insurers. And guess what? See, I was already character developed by Nest team, where I went in my official and then they laughed at me. So I decided to go the far left, where I came in a jeans and my sneakers and a t-shirt and a hoodie. And I walk into KPMG.
And everyone.
And I'm there. At that time, I'm the one who's leading the team. So they're expecting this guy who's like looking this way to give us a speech of how innovation should look like. And I walk up on stage and guys are like,
Sneakers.
what the sneakers, t-shirt,
Is
and
this
a
the
hoodie.
guy?
I remember having a t-shirt, a hoodie that is blue, and I wore it, and my bag, So they're looking at me like, hey? And the first thing that, in fact, because I remember the guy who was giving the speech, the MC, thought actually I'm from media.
Oh.
And they're like, I'm a blogger, I'm writing about this thing. It's like, oh yeah, this is not for press.
Wow.
I was like, hey, okay. So I went, sat there, and they're like, now we welcome Maurice on stage. And the guy sees me coming up. He's like, what? Wait, what? Go there. And for me, it tells me how perception sometimes can be a blocker of knowledge or something.
Yeah.
So this young guy, or you looks young, wearing a hoodie and all these things, come to talk to us CEOs and because it was CEOs of insurance firms and top managements of KPMG, which is also a big four. And yes, he might have a good background, but we've not seen him. So they've interacted with the paper, they've interacted with what this guy has done, but not the person. They see this guy, they're like, probably he's not smart. After 2 minutes of talking, then they're like, okay, can we exchange the cards now?
Wow.
So, and that is when I was like, okay, I need to find that thing that defines me. And I need to have a balance where it's official but also casual. Because I can imagine if I went to startups wearing a suit, also they'd be like, "Wait, what? Who are you? Like, are you an investor? Or are you selling me insurance? So I had to have a balance where I'm fit for the formal workplace. I'm also not too formal for the informal kind of structure.
Yes.
And that's when I start wearing khaki pants, leather shoes, a t-shirt, a jacket, and a kofia. So because if you go to an office and you have a t-shirt and a jacket and the khaki pants, they'll be like, okay, good.
It's formal enough.
It's formal enough,
And
but
casual enough.
But
casual.
still, where did the idea of the kofia come from? Everything else makes sense.
The kofia comes because I'd not combed my hair.
Okay.
I'd not combed my hair, and if I can just move my hair, you can see like this. Nywele imeanza kuisha, so it's receding, So I'm like, okay, how do I cover this hairstyle that people see that I'm not too rugged for them? So I cover it with this hat that I found in the house. It was not intentional. I find it and it becomes me. And I start wearing it and guys are like, you rock it. You really, it looks well. And there's a guy who also tells me like, rock it. So a guy called Stuart Samkange who used to work for SAP. He's also a guy in dreads, senior guy, works at LinkedIn right now. He looks at me, he's like, don't ever lose the hat. And every single time right now where I go somewhere where I remove my hat and you guys are like, nice to meet you. Then I wear it, they're like, oh, Maurice, that's So that's how the hat comes.
Yeah. What's your highlight at Meta before we jump to the next phase of...
To Baraza.
Yeah, to Baraza.
Yeah.
Man, they are multiple. They're multiple. But for me, it's just even hosting like from prime ministers, like Prime Minister of Belgium to the Cabinet Secretary of State right now in the UK. I forget his name. Like hosting people who saw value in what we were doing.
Yeah.
And also for the other highlight for me was when entrepreneurs come back and say like, we got this investment because of this place. Or actually, I got a job because I was on a panel that you guys curated and this guy was hiring and they saw me. And those are moments where I get my blood boiling because I really got to move, or our work really got to move the needle for people. So
yeah. I remember thinking at that time, because I obviously am in that same space, and I remember coming to Meta and thinking, this is different. Because you always go to all these different events at different places, and nothing wrong with them entirely, but I just remember thinking, because I was there with a lot of, at that time I was doing a few things with Moringa School for their data science courses.
Nice.
So we used to be at Meta
A lot.
Interesting. And I remember thinking, this space is cooler. I think there is more energy here.
Yeah.
I think the community looks like it's being set up for success, for relatively more success compared to other spaces. And it explains why that was the case. It's because you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. You can speak a little bit more about like what we did there, because it downright one of my most exciting times in my entire career.
Yeah. How long were you there?
I was there for 5 years.
Oh,
5
nice.
years.
Now even longer than Strath.
Baraza and Strath. Yeah. Baraza now is 3.5.
Look at that. Let's get into Baraza, Manze. So we are thinking community. Yeah. At what point are you now underlining this word and going, community is a big deal about what I do and what I'm passionate about? And how do you end up into Baraza?
So that's a good question. So this journey of self-discovery, from leaving accounting to coming onto this part of my world where now I'm dealing with community and startups and entrepreneurship, I start questioning myself a lot because it's not defined. You know, an accountant, you're defined.
Yeah.
A politician, okay, politicians sometimes are everywhere.
A doctor,
you know, a lawyer, you're defined, you know. But a startup enabler, you're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So I start questioning myself a lot. And I like the fact that you even mentioned the word Ikigai. So I started mentioning, like, what do people know me about for? And I kind of make them into circles. And I found, like, people know me for, like, oh, you bring people together. Good. Community. Oh, you are really passionate about investments. Oh, investments. You're really passionate about innovation, you know. So then the center of all these things becomes, like, how do we use community to bring innovations to light? How do you use community to bring investments to the community itself? So that's my kind of Ikigai, you know, the intersection of community, investments, and innovation. It doesn't matter what sector you are in. You'll always need a community, either to sell to, either to buy, to talk about you. And the one thing, M-Pesa, I know we've talked a lot about M-Pesa. The one thing that they did very well is build a community of agents that they had all over, and that enabled them to kind of sell, you know, and and go into the machinani areas more than even banks, right? So for me, community building or community designing is not a thing that is more NGO-ish. It's something that everybody needs. Even right now, even podcasting, you're building a community of listeners, right? So you need to cultivate. You need to know the do's and don'ts of cultivating that community and keeping them vibrant and keeping them engaged, right? And that's where my work comes in.
Okay.
So at Meta, I've run Meta for 4 years right now. It might not be public, but Meta since shut down officially. And it's because of a myriad of factors. Meta's parent company was based out of Hong Kong. Hong Kong went into civil unrest in 2018. That meant that Nairobi was actually supporting Hong Kong financially. I remember part of the investors of Meta were the building owners. Because when we were pitching, when I was left to pitch this, we pitched and got the space from Talan Carpet family. They gave us that space. In 2019, a terror attack happens in...
I was going to ask you that.
14 Riverside, right? That also reduces our trajectory. And validly, it makes people fear or feel weird coming to the space. That means business is not going on well. But in also that year is when we also financially make the most money we've ever made in the entire existence of Meta. We got big contracts with, British Council or Media Networks, all these guys. But one of the contracts that you get is, hey, we've seen what you guys have built with Meta, the community sense, the camaraderie, they bring like a town hall. People come and discuss their issues and they kind of find the solutions. Can you do that for the media and the creative space? That's the question we are asked by Illuminate, who are our anchor funders now. And they come and say, figure out how to build that. That is in 2019, right? Figure out how to build that. And we'll give you money to build it, and we'll pay you as management consultants as Meta. So we figure it out. We build Meta, Baraza, the physical space on 95 Riverside. Keystone Park, yeah. If you look at how it looks like, it's almost exactly identical to Meta, because we are creative but not very creative. So we just looked at the space, we're like, here, do it bigger, and we move it to this side.
Until you mentioned it, I'd never noticed that. Oh yeah,
it has a bit of its own style, but if you look at the ceiling, the walls, the floor, everything, the wood, it's Meta.
Even like the brown thing going on.
Exactly. So we pick it, we move, we build it, and the intention was for Meta to build it, run it for a couple of years, but let it run by itself, and we go back to build Meta. So we build it in 2019 December. We launch. What happens in 2020? COVID happens. So this is another thing that hits Meta hard. Baraza is a bit safer because it just got the investment. So we continue doing that.
Yeah.
So now we're at Baraza.
Yeah.
Right? And what Baraza does is that we start this community where we are we say, okay, let's build a community of creatives, funders of creatives, government, civil society to come together and build solutions for our community. And the Meta is still facing its own challenges. And we'll take the similar model of having membership, we'll have programs, we'll have research, we'll have incubation, and eventually we'll have a fund that invests. So that's how Baraza was structured. And at that time, I'm managing two spaces. I'm managing Baraza, I'm managing Meta in 2020. Eventually, Meta kind of dwindles off. In 2021, we start opening up Baraza now to the community. People are coming there, hosting events, and things are being launched there. I'm also very happy to say, like, some experiments that were done there, for example, was it's called TTNT by Njugush. So Njugush does his experiment there where he's like, it's COVID, but he needs to do a show. And he brings a techie guy who builds the site, and he will give him the space to host this. And he does a live show that sells online, and it's super well received. And we see our space as an experimentation space. That people come and experiment for things that work. The other experiment that I'm sure most people also know about is Semabox. So during COVID, during COVID, Semabox comes, Dana Seda comes and says, hey, we have this idea of starting a podcasting studio because people cannot convene. So can we do this podcasting thing here? And then we build it. But for us, always, whenever we are assisting these kind of initiatives, either with space, time, money, or whatever, we always have a sustainability angle where we're saying, we know that Baraza at some point might not exist. Can you exist beyond us? Yeah. And that Semabox comes in and starts their thing and becomes famous than even Baraza.
It's like Semabox is hosting Baraza.
Yeah, exactly. Semabox is hosting Baraza. Then the other thing that we also incubated is called Shahara. So Shahara is this platform for video on demand that got investment from Sauti Sol and John Allen Namu, because they're almost like a Netflix competitor, but you get a one-time link to share that. So, and these guys have all grown bigger than us. You look at TTNT now, they're doing TTNT4 like live in the UK, in Kenya, and like live shows oversubscribed. Even Minor Minds with poetry, that it was incubated at Baraza. So they start there, then they grow and become bigger, right? And they host it now at Alliance, where it's more people than us. So that's the essence why Baraza existed. To be able to have a place where we test out things that will have ripple effects in the community. Not as individuals, but in the community. So that's what we do at Baraza. And in 2021, I'm running the two stories concurrently. In 2021, our landlord at Meta goes under receivership. Right? So 14 Riverside, I don't know how many of you know it. It goes under receivership, and most of their property is taken, including Meta. So that's the final nail on Meta. And the team disintegrates, and most of them are in good places within the community. Some of them at iHub, some of them in investment funds. And that's how Meta dies. But meanwhile, I moved to Baraza now to manage it, because as much as Baraza is heavily on creatives, there needs to be some sustainable angle. And that's where now I come in. So I come in from that point of like, we'll build community around Baraza, but we always have to think of how is it sustainable? How is it sustained?
How have you managed the shift, at least mentally and in terms of how you approach things? Because there are some similarities, but also a lot of differences between startups and creatives.
Man, that was a tough one. Because first of all, and I'll be very blunt here, the startup side and the tech side is very commercial. Like, you don't make money, you're gone. It's not passion. Yeah, they talk about passion, start what you like, all these things. But at the end of the day, can it pay bills? If it can't pay bills, you have no space in that universe. Then I transition to the creative side, where the creative side is very personal. It's me pouring out myself out there to you, and I want you guys to like it. That's the first thing. I want you guys to like it. Now, do they like it enough to pay for it? Is that another question? So my transition to this side, where it was just like, no, but we want to do this because we like it. And I know people like it. I'm like, good. Do they pay for it? Because at the end of the day, we love to support creators to create a lot. But if nobody's buying it, if nobody's seeing value in it, then to be honest, it becomes difficult for people to invest in it. So that has been a very big shift for me. And I think, and I mentioned something about Baraza Fund. Initially, because when we joined, we thought like, let's just support creatives and they'll be sustainable. No, let's support sustainable creativity. And one of the things that we saw was the system of how the creative and the media space was funded was broken from the word go. And that is what is making the space to be more dependent on non-accountable financing. Non-accountable meaning that I've got this money, I'll do this project, then I'm done. Then I go for another money to do this project, then I'm done, you know. And more than often, the people who are giving you that money, because it's grants, they also have their own agenda.
Of course.
You know, money is the one thing that does not have a language. Money is the one thing that does not have a current, a face, you know. Money is universal. You have a lot of money, yes, you have a lot of money. It doesn't care which tribe you are or what agenda you have, you know. But the philanthropy money also comes in an agenda. Development money comes in the agenda.
Has strings attached.
Exactly. I want to do a podcast. Yes, you're a creative person. Good. But do it in climate change. You're like, I care about climate change, but to be honest, I care more about food now. So let me do a podcast on food. No, I'll give you this money if you can do it only on climate change. Actually, corruption also. I have nothing against public interest issues like corruption.
You've actually incubated a lot of programs.
Exactly, that's what we do. But it has to have a commercial angle.
Yeah.
I also agree to the point that there are some things that will never have a commercial angle. You know, investigative journalism will never have a commercial angle. You know, so that is it. So I do think though that, and that's why I come in with Baraza can offer that we're in the process of how do we make creative spaces or creative pieces be sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at that. Is there hope so far with the interaction? Do you think we, the creatives, are improving around how we look at the money-making side as much as we are following up on the passion?
It's a long-term game.
Yeah.
It's a long-term game. It's almost an ecosystem and mind shift that needs to be done.
Yeah.
A lot. Like you have something and it's valuable and somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that person who pays for it doesn't have to be the person who funds the entire thing. It's your audience. And that's why I like what TTNT guys are doing. Because they know you'll pay for my Edgar Barre, beat him up or say whatever you want. People pay for it.
Smart.
You know?
Yeah.
So until people start paying for it, they see that
the commercialization of motion, TMZ.
Yeah, exactly.
The storybook of TMZ.
And people will pay, right?
yeah. And people do pay. Hey, look at that. That's it's quite a journey, Maze. Iterations, like you say, from one to the next.
I know, man. I told you, man. This guy is out here being born.
One last thing about around Baraza. Where you are now, which works better? Is it for the creative to find you, or is it in terms of like with the fund? Is it you setting out a call for them to come in? How does it work?
So for now, the fund, to be honest, is still a long way.
Okay.
So we are still. The reason why I'm mentioning it even now is because it's something that needs to be done. I know there are so many people who have been funding the creative space in a different way.
Yeah.
British Council, Fifa Fund, and all these guys who are doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
And even a lot of philanthropies, but I think there's space for more. So the fund is a long way, and it's a long way because we still have to convince the people who are funding the fund on the matrices of how are you going to fund this people? Is this sustainable also? And also convince the market that they need to start looking at their creativity as a commercial endeavor and something that is valuable, you know? And so it's a market balance right now. So for now, we do work in a situation where we go to the creative communities, and also the creative communities find us in our spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, Abu had a phenomenal idea, he could just pop in.
Okay. What I could say as of now is that the funding is a bit restricted. Because we're still building the fund.
Yeah.
Because we're still fundraising ourselves.
But there's also other ways.
There's other ways.
It's not just direct funding. It could be workspace.
Yeah, like for example, there's
the community as well.
The community as well. We've seen people who, because you know, funding, yes, there's financial, but there's also in kind. Like for example, TTNT, for example, Minor Minds, for example,
Busy Being Born coming up.
Busy Being Born, right? so guys come up and say, how do you support it? And we kind of figure out ways of supporting it through different means, you know. But at the end of the day, I think one thing that would be super powerful is when we start putting money into creatives work, and putting money with with a slightly commercial angle.
That's why you are needed in this space.
Yes.
You see, at the end of the day, in as much as we can sit here and poop on accounting, it comes around because now all the things that you learned about accounting,
It's coming
look
through.
at you
Yes.
helping the creative community.
Definitely.
Because that is the angle that you're bringing in. How can we make this more sustainable?
Yeah.
And I can bet you there's a high likelihood that most people who have the creative minds and spend their time doing the thing that you're not good at,
Yeah.
writing
Yeah.
and creating,
Yeah.
right? They will
But,
not think about this component,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why we are one. That's why you need to remember that all of us bring different things
Yeah.
to the table.
Yeah.
And the more we keep finding each other, the more
Yeah.
we keep tapping into our different strengths
Yeah.
and whatever we bring to the table, then we make this thing work,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I mean, look at Jay-Z's empire.
Absolutely.
Like,
Look at
there's
that.
an accountant, there's a lawyer, so respect each other's lane. But like, you're a creative, yes, do your work. We also respect what I bring on the table.
Yep.
And I also respect what you do in the table.
Yeah.
And just kind of figure out how to work together.
Yeah. It's just recognizing that this thing does not work when we are in different places.
Yeah.
This thing only works if we bring all these things to the
Yeah.
table and find ways actually of recognizing that they should be working together. They are not separate entities. At whatever professional level, at the personal level, and I
all
could even go.
connected.
Yeah, they're all connected,
Yeah.
right? And the more we find ourselves fully discovering that, then the more we can move forward, at least towards a point where we can say, okay, we are fulfilled as human beings.
Yeah.
We have more fulfillment as accountants, former accountants.
From recovering
Recovering accountants.
Recovering
I
accountants.
like that.
Let's wrap up. I've seen the wrap up sign
Yeah.
44 times. Right now. I'm just ignoring it.
By the way, 44 is Githurai 44.
Hey, tukimalizia. Well, kulikuwa na tangent tungeenda, but we are here for busy being born. We are here for the growth.
Yeah.
How is the wife?
Oh man, awesome.
Yeah.
Who's also an entrepreneur?
Who's also an entrepreneur. So my wife, who's American, the reason why I'm laughing is because I remember first joining my work, and and you'll always look at some things as you'll always look at Americans or white people as very smart. My wife is very smart, by the way, and she's the one who told me, like, no. They are also white who are pretty. DAMN, dumb. You know. Yeah. So we met interestingly. She's awesome. She's an entrepreneur. We met in through rugby. I was playing rugby. One of my cousins was dating her.
Rugby has been good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it gave me everything. A wife.
Yeah.
And yeah. So my cousins, he's called Larry Nyambok. Used to
No way.
Yeah.
Larry's your cousin.
Larry's
What a
Larry's
small
my
world.
Yeah.
So Larry used to actually I joined rugby Queens and
Because of Larry.
before him actually.
Before
He
him?
joined before me.
Oh, wow.
He joined.
Yeah.
He joined after me, and he joined. And we got to know that we are cousins in the pitch because we were fighting. Then he was like, he mentioned our family members. Like, wait, what? That's my kuzo. They were like, oh, you're my. Okay, so we are cousins.
Yeah.
Then he ended up inviting he ended up inviting his girlfriend, and the girlfriend came with a roommate who's a friend who's now my wife.
Hey.
Wow.
And at that time I was working at Strathmore, and my wife is in education and youth employment. So she says, hey, actually good. So I invited her to Strathmore. I was like, come see what you're doing in the education space in Kenya. And for her, it was exciting to be at a Kenyan university. So she came and what we did is she came as part of our first date where we were going
Smooth, bro.
to see Strathmore.
Smooth.
Yeah. But then I also said we are going for camping.
Yeah.
So she was like, hey, her first date was camping. And not only in camping, we went to Nyeri, Muega. So we drove, and not, back then there was no Uber, and I didn't have money for taxi. So we used public transport.
Wow.
So this white lady who's 3 months in the country going on a date with this guy that he just met at a rugby pitch, and they're going to, first date is a camping thing in Muega, Nyeri, and using public transport from not Tirum, there's Koja, and you're seated there, and it was in the night about 8 p.m. We're going to this place where our friend has a campsite, and we're sitting in a matatu, which is clearly a 14-seater, but had 20 people.
Yeah.
People facing opposite side. Gari naenda huku, they're facing nyuma. There's itoka sosa. Somebody has sat on that sosa, and somebody's looking at her like, hey, I've never seen a white person in this car. So it was very traumatizing, but I think for me it was a blessing in disguise because she had nowhere to run.
Oh,
So she was
wow.
stuck with me.
Are you sure that was not a strategy?
it was like one of those things. She's stuck with me. She has to comply.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it ended
Look
up.
at that.
I
And
think
after that, I think there was only one way out. You guys are gonna get married. If that's your first
Yeah.
date,
Might
Yeah,
as
we-
well.
we-
Men's
yeah.
are depend.
Men's are depend.
Trust from the first
yeah,
sight.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How has it been? What's the highlight? You have 2 kids now.
Yes,
Two
we have
girls?
2 kids, 2 girls, 4 years, and another one who's turning 2.
I know this because we were the same sort of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the first one,
Yes.
and then mkaenda mbele yetu for the second one.
Yes, for the second, we wanted to maliza that story with Karaka, with the girls. The highlight for me within this process is just how to, so because it's multiracial, multicultural. One thing that I learned is like just relationship as anything. It's like how to appreciate her culture and take the goods, and how to appreciate my culture and take the good or sieve out the
Both
bad.
ends.
One case and point is how Americans or that part of the world view money, right? So for them, money is our thing. For us, money is your money is ours. My money is my money, so that kind of thing. So we had to go through some of these cultural shifts of just understanding how do you talk, how do you deal with money, how do you
Yeah.
respect husband, how do you respect wife, how do you so my highlight was just within our entire process was when first of all, just the wedding. The wedding was my highlight of our relationship also, because it was complete marriage of those 2 cultures and how we appreciate things. For most Western countries or even America, the way they take weddings is very personal. It's if I've given you an invite to my wedding, it's like you respect it, and it's a privilege, and you don't come with your friend if I've not invited them. You
Yeah.
don't come with your partner if I've not invited them. Right? For us, it's a village.
Yeah, Nimbo,
like
Nimbo.
Maurice's wedding. So bring a whole bus from Agorosare to carry people from Ocha and bring them to Nairobi and celebrate. So it was different.
Yeah.
So we had 90 people in our wedding. We didn't do it in Nairobi. We did it in Mombasa.
Yeah.
And it was the highlight of my life
That's
because that gave us every single person who came for our wedding is still our friend.
Yeah.
And one of the crazy criteria that we used is that if we have not talked to you in 6 months, you're not being invited.
You're not a friend.
Because clearly you're not a friend.
Yeah.
And actually, even now we are saying we are coming up on our 5th year of marriage.
Yeah.
We've been together for 10 years, and we are saying if you've not seen our kids, you're not
not a
coming
friend.
for the 5th
Yeah.
year anniversary.
That's a
Even
good-
though you
that's a
made the
good way of
cut of 6
filtering.
months. Because to be
Yeah.
honest, if I've not talked to you, you've not seen my kids, then you're an acquaintance. I know you. You're not
Yeah.
you're not
We're
somebody
not
who I need to
friends,
invite in my
friends.
friend.
Look
Yeah.
at that.
I've seen your kids at rugby, right?
You,
So am I
you're
get-
invited. You're invited.
It has to be intentional,
Intentional.
by chance. So.
That's the other thing I learned, yeah. And very few people do that because we have this pressure from our culture
Yeah.
of inviting everyone, then you end up starting your marriage or your life in debt.
Yeah.
For us, it was like, no.
It's a good lesson.
If it's 20 people, so my farm, it was only 4 people.
Wow.
My mom, my dad, my 2 sisters. So even with my broader family, I've not done a wedding, but they are still waiting for the
Yeah.
wedding because they were never invited.
Mm.
And I was like, I talk to you guys once a year when you are home in December. So why you don't know me. It was a tough pill to swallow from my mom.
Yeah.
Who because for me it was just like, if you're inviting them, you're paying for them. Is that okay? Good. And also, since we did it at the coast, it meant that there's an investment of people to travel. So even your friends that you invited and you really want to see if they're friends never showed up, and you're like, cheers, because you never showed up. I mean,
Travel light.
yeah, we didn't
I
ask
see
you
that.
to contribute money, but which is culture, bad behavior. No, panga. If you're going to wed, if you're having a kid, come on, 20,000, fanya wedding yako at 20,000, and that's it. Go home. This thing of finding wedding for 2 million and you have to stress us upon.
Yeah. I was going to ask a question. What's a controversial opinion that you have? Thanks for answering it.
That's the one, right?
That
But to be honest, like, ni kama kwani we helped you dating.
No,
We never
really.
used to say like
Hamkuinvest.
tuchangieni tunaenda date. Hapana.
Huko tulienda na wewe Nyeri. Ulikuwa kwa hiyo matatu.
Uko kwa matatu kwa watu 20. No. So
You know what I love? I love the contrast between how lean your personal life and relations are as opposed to the professional
where
and
it's
the
community.
bigger community.
Yeah.
And all.
no, I rarely post even. I have a couple of my pictures. I rarely post them. Not because I don't want to. I have the perfect family. To be honest, I'm very glad. It's just that for me, I've not asked for their permission.
Yeah.
So like, if they don't want to be posted, watch out for Kweuko.
Yeah.
Until the day when they
until the day
can
when
they,
they are
they
ready
can
to
give you
ask.
consent.
Yeah,
All right.
or until the day the politician, another one, decides to do the
All right.
Hey,
Maurice, thank you so much. So we're gonna
Thank you,
wrap up
man.
with like
Yeah.
3 final
Big
questions.
three.
Yeah.
I think we'd go for a while,
Yeah.
but Monique and our next things after this
I know.
would really suffer.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you a big reader? Are you an avid reader? And if so, what book do you think we haven't even talked about your current MBA program and why you decided to go there? But that's a story
But that's
for
a story
another
for
day.
another day. Yeah.
Yeah. What book have you read most that has had a big impact in how you view life? / what book have you or
Gifted.
would gift?
Interesting. Huh. So I was not an avid reader. Now I am. I read from short articles to, the elephant kind of articles, 24 minutes kind of reads, to now books. My current read is a book called 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 basically talks about like what we are right now, surveillance, government reach, cancel culture, all those kind of things. And now it's coming to life. So that's what I'm reading right now. It's exciting. It's a long one. My previous read, which I read for almost 6 months, was Britain's Gulag, which was basically talking about what Britain did to Kenyans. I would highly recommend for people to read it to just understand who they are. Because one thing that I've learned also is that most superpowers in the world have a story, right? US, the civil rights movement, to Germany, the time of the Soviet War, Berlin, like all those kind of things,
Yeah.
Holocaust, they have a story that is making them to be a superpower. I mean, even South Africa, it's not a superpower, but they have apartheid.
They have a
right?
story as well.
Rwanda has genocide. And they tell that story and they keep on repeating it to the next generation to know where they came from and why they should not look backwards, but always look forward to make it a better place. What is the Kenyan story? I remember when people were debating a lot of stories recently and people were like, it's not Kenyan culture. I was like, what is the Kenyan culture? What is our story? And our story has been whitewashed a lot. That's why I'll advise mostly Kenyans or even anybody who feels or identifies as Kenyan should read Britain's Gulag. Because Britain's Gulag, for me, it's one of those dark stories that tells us what we went through, what we had to come through as a country, and explains, and we should at least read it in the perspective of like we should not go back there, or understanding how things work right now in Kenya, where there's what you're calling deep state. How did this deep state start? That thing can tell you. How did a certain tribe or certain people feel like they're alienated, or they are actually alienated, or those kind of things. So Britain's Gulag, I'll recommend. It's a heavy one. It was written by Hawkins, I think. It was her PhD project, which she converted to be a book. It's massive. Half of it is just citations, then half of it is the content. But really good read for Kenyans to understand where we came from and what were the things that were done to our country. And George Orwell, which I'm reading right now, 1984, to just understand like this woke culture. I'm not saying that woke culture is bad, but it's also exclusionary in its own way. Because you're doing this, we cancel you. You've already excluded me.
How is that different from everything that we've done over time?
It's
just
so
realignment along different lines.
Yeah.
So
So that's the one I'll recommend.
Okay.
And of course, if you want to watch any Netflix stand-up, I am a big stand-up and comedy guy. So watch the current one that I'm a big person to. Of course, local comedy. I follow Punchline and the collective
Stand-up
work.
collective.
Globally, I like
Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah, yes, but I do like more of Ricky Gervais and
Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle's, because I think they have storytelling. They have a very interesting way of storytelling. Like they'll start from here, then they leave you from this point where like, I see where this came from. So I like their storytelling and satire in the sense. Definitely Trevor, because apart from being a very good storyteller, I also like just his story, his personal story. So I'll also Chris Rock, which is what I've just watched, which I will recommend to anyone to just understand how the world is working right now.
All right.
The greats. Dead or alive?
Dead or alive, if you're to have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, once in a lifetime opportunity, who would those
Actually, one of them you've already mentioned, Trevor.
Trevor, no, eh?
I'm a big fan of that guy.
Yeah. So there'd be Trevor.
Trevor, my wife. I have dinner with her every day, but
That's
I'd
what's
love
up.
to have one,
Oh,
one
man.
big one with her.
Yeah.
If I was to die, she's the person I love first. I would like to have a last one. Let's have last
Yeah.
one. Because that's one of the things that I do. My father never did that, but me as a dad, I want to be a dad who's also having dinner with the wife every day.
Look at that.
Is there another person?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's it.
so technically, it's people you think of interesting conversations you'd have with them. So they could be years gone. They could be the Trevor Noahs who are present. So yes. And it doesn't have to, after this meal, then life ends. It's just an
Okay.
interesting conversation with them.
Even Mandela for me would be
Mandela.
interesting. Because for me it's less like
That's
how
the
do you do that? How do you just forgive guys and bring people together? And since I'm trying to bring people together, I'm not saying I'm trying to be Mandela, but I would love to.
Why not?
I would
Why
love to,
not?
you know,
And
I
he'd
would
be
love to.
proud of you, you know?
Because for me it's just
Having-
like, how do you forget, like I've wronged you, but still let's sit and figure out our way forward.
27 years you've imprisoned me.
Yeah, and still I forgive you for
Yeah.
that. Let's talk.
Yeah.
For me that is like,
It's a phenomenal
and
story
yes, people
of
can say
purity,
it's a
purity
sellout
of
or
mind
anything,
and heart.
but to be honest, for me, I just think like there's different ways of approaching problem solving. And
Yeah.
his way was just unique for me. I would
Yeah.
love to have dinner and just talk to him and just hear him talk. Yeah.
And please tell him you've married White. He'd be happy.
I've bridged the gap.
Yeah.
And finally.
And finally, if you're on stage somewhere but you didn't have an opportunity to say anything, but you're with Mandela and Trevor Noah, so you had something printed on your shirt, a message that would resonate across the continent to your communities. What would this message
With Africa in mind.
be? Africa in mind. What would this message be?
I think it would be close to what my mantra is. Just be nice.
Be nice.
Because look at it this way. If somebody's not nice to you, you cancel. Or you beat them up. Or you undermine, right? So there's always these things that we always react, but not always think of the other person in good light. I know they are evil in the world. I'm not trying to be naive and be like, everybody is nice, kumbaya and all that. There's evil, but evil sometimes is treated with nice.
Yeah.
Evil is actually pacified with nice sometimes.
You know what the Buddha or someone said? Hatred can only be defeated by love and never by hatred.
Yeah.
Never by hatred.
That could actually be Mandela. Might be.
Yeah, might be, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
someone,
it's
someone just
someone
who's
of
been
that caliber.
someone
But
of that caliber.
it's because being nice, because sometimes people are nice because they want something. It's like a strategic relationship. The strategic relationship, like I'm being nice to you, Sam, because I know at some point
In
you'll
order
employ
for
me
this.
to this thing, or I recommend you to myself. Just be nice
Nice.
Without expecting anything.
without expecting anything.
Hey,
Without expecting a standing ovation.
asante sana, maze. That has been one hell of a journey, maze.
know,
And
man.
we wish you so much goodness ahead of you.
Thank you so
Keep
much.
going, keep growing the communities, keep building spaces, not only for the creatives, but I guess even for just Kenyans, because
Yeah.
clearly you've gone into sports, you've gone into innovation.
Maybe the next
you've
space
gone
is for
into the
sports.
arts.
You've gone from startups to creatives. Maybe the
Yes.
next one is sports. Who knows?
Hey, I feel like we've ticked off 3 different boxes or even more. Yeah. Around what you're doing currently, around your life in sports, etc. etc. So thank you, sir, and stay busy being born.
Asante sana. I'm super happy and proud to be on my first podcast in my life. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Too many more.
Thank you for the honor. And thank you so much. Really appreciate you. For our guests, not our guests, what are they called?
Our team.
Our team. Thank you so much, Abu. Thank you so much. Monique, Grace, really appreciate you.
Yeah.
And for you who's watching, who's listening, again, thank you so much for getting to this point. And we hope that you've learned as much as we have and you are inspired and motivated to stay on your journey of busy being born.
Busy being born.
Discovery of the self.
That's what's up. And you know where to find us. We are on our website starting off.
busybeingborn.africa.
Yeah.
We are on Twitter, Instagram at busybeingborn_ because we couldn't get Busy Being Born without an underscore.
Yeah.
And we're on Facebook at the Busy Being Born podcast. Maurice, where can guys find you? You're on Twitter at Maurice Otieno O.
Yes.
Why
Maurice
the,
Otieno O.
who is the last O? Why?
Okoth.
Okoth. Okay,
That's my
Maurice
dad's
Otieno
name.
Okoth.
So
Oh,
Maurice
nice.
Otieno O. And also on all platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, as the same. Maurice Otieno.
Maurice Otieno.
And
All right. Baraza Lab.
barazalab.com, the site.
Okay.
Or we are Baraza on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on all social platforms.
Nice.
I think apart from TikTok.
Okay.
Yes.
We are not on TikTok. Are we on TikTok? We are not on
think
TikTok
so.
yet.
Yeah.
We'll be at busy being born underscore.
Probably.
Soon. Coming soon.
Yeah, coming
Hey.
soon. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana for listening. Let me say this, Baraza, good job. Keep
Thank you
going.
so much.
Like
You've-
as a creative,
Yeah.
you've just even said at we are Baraza.
Baraza, yeah.
Nico, yeah. You guys are out there doing a good job.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Asante sana.
You know where to find us. We have been your hosts. Do we say what we do first? Stay busy being born thing. Ama we say our names.
Go
first?
for it.
Aya, twende kazi here.
You know what you always say, if you're not busy being born.
Then you're probably busy not leaving.
I've been your host. I am Kamande.
There you go, Kamande and your boy Kigondu.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Do look out for more from us. For now, kwaheri.